I am awesome, Martin. How are you doing today? Thank you. And let's welcome everybody to AGTP Insights number. Do you know what number it is, man? It's a big number. 134, 134 times. Yeah, we go live every Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, Martin, to talk about the most important tech stories in the United States. It's Monday, the 17th of August, 2026. A bunch of stuff to talk about as usual. I want to talk about Stripe acquiring OpenRouter. It feels weird, but I think it makes a certain amount of sense, and we can see what other people are thinking about it as well. Can Dario Amodei stay out of the news? I guess that's another question. It feels unlikely. He took to X today to respond to the growing backlash against AI and some commentary from an investor. We'll get to that too. And we've been talking about the crickets around OpenAI, sorry about it, around Anthropic revenue surged in the second quarter of 2026, apparently. Yes, surged. Yeah, we can break it down after that. Let's just see what surged actually means. And then later in the show, Martin, we are going to talk to Jim Tousignant, the founder and CEO at FinTech Studios. He's going to talk to us about how AI-powered intelligence is changing decision-making for financial institutions. And then after that, we'll be joined by Hardik Dobariya, founder and CEO at Factorem. We're going to talk about how AI-native manufacturing infrastructure is changing how advanced hardware companies build and scale products. Okay, let's talk about Stripe acquiring OpenRouter. Can I just ask you before? Yeah, you see this, you saw this, right? Obviously, we published something about this. But just, do you want me to run through the stats first, or do you want to just give me like a quick opinion? Okay, so Stripe has reportedly finalized an agreement to acquire OpenRouter for $7 billion or slightly more. Um, and a Stripe person told TechCrunch the company doesn't comment on rumors or speculation, but this is out there now, and I think this is real. And here's what's interesting, Martin. The price is kind of surprising, although not surprising for me because it's Stripe, because OpenRouter was valued at roughly $1.3 billion in May. I'm just going to let that sit out there for a second. Okay, because well, it's a huge increase. It's 6 times, 5 point something times. Let's call it 5.7 times, right? Um, and that's not like a fake, maybe it was valued at that, maybe it wasn't. They raised $113 million Series B, okay, led by Capital G. So that was the valuation. That was the post-money valuation based on that raise. And that means that, as I just mentioned, that this reported acquisition price, the acquisition price is 5 point something times the valuation. And the Wall Street Journal had previously reported that discussions could value it at almost $10 billion. But this is really important, right? So why does this matter? It's because OpenRouter has become a very important piece of AI infrastructure. And what has Stripe been saying about what they want to do? Right? They want to become part of AI infrastructure. They've been kind of hinting at this actually for the last, I don't know, for this whole year almost. Remember, what does OpenRouter do? It can route requests without developers having to integrate directly with every model company. They've already done that for you. I love businesses that sit above these horizontal style businesses, that sit above every other business that's in that vertical, and then connect to them all. And I've been saying this for almost a decade now. Okay.
It's true. It's true.
And I have been saying that, right? So I love this kind of thing. And every time I see somebody acquire it, I'm like, yeah, it has way more value when it's part of something else than when it's on its own. Okay. And OpenRouter also said in May that it had 8 million users, access to more than 400 models, and was processing roughly 100 trillion tokens a month. And its token volume has increased about 5-fold in 6 months.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Huge.
So let's just say a lot of stuff. Like, this is a big story because it's a big story. Do you know what I mean? It's not a big story because I think it's a big story or because you think it's a big story, only because it's all over X. It's a big story because it's a big story. Okay. And there's an existing relationship between the company because Stripe announced in January that OpenRouter was already using Stripe for payments. Remember, Stripe said at the beginning of this year that they've started this thing, they want to have this protocol for micropayments. Yeah.
Yes.
MPP. And this is a big deal, I think, as well. And they've also integrated their products together so developers could route AI workloads through OpenRouter while Stripe tracked the usage and handled the monetization. So it's not like just Stripe woke up yesterday and was like, maybe we should buy OpenRouter. It's like they've already been working together all year, particularly in the context of what Stripe has been building, right? Now, remember that Stripe has also, as I said earlier, or as I hinted at earlier, they've been describing themselves as what, right? As the economic infrastructure for AI. And it's weird to, not weird, but it's interesting to me that like these Colistons, right, and the company that they've built actually becomes very proactive and very forward-looking, right? Because they just could have sat there and done what every other payment company did and just said, payments are good, payment orchestration matters, and we're just going to keep going in the stuff that we know. But these guys looked around and said, what's the next big thing? And they said AI infrastructure is going to be the next big thing. But they also said that micropayments are going to start to be more important. Again, this gets back to what Yatsu told us. Remember, Martin?
Yes.
When we were at the AI conference, Super AI in Singapore, he was like, look, the market's been waiting for this machine-to-machine payment, and that is going to be, right? That is going to be micropayments, at least to start. Okay. And OpenRouter does something else because it figures out where the AI workload should go and how much of the compute gets consumed. So it's doing a lot of stuff. And remember, again, just for the audience to remember like when this company was founded and to see how fast this growth can happen in the AI space if you nail something perfectly, 2023. So they figured out, say that again?
That's really quick.
Yeah, but also, Martin, they figured out really quickly, right, that, how do I want to say this the right way? They figured out really quickly that if there are going to be a bunch of different models, someone's going to have to moderate like which, and they also figured out if they're open, not open source, open weight models, closed models, a bunch of different models, right? I said at the beginning of this that they've connected to 400 models. We could probably name 8 of them, but I mean 400. Yeah, and let's say that like OpenAI has a few models, Anthropic has a few models, DeepSeek has a few models, right? Moonshot has a few models, but to get to 400, you're gonna have to go really, really deep and really wide.
They do images as well, they do videos as well, so that's where like the numbers can get bigger, because we don't really talk much about like image and video generation on the podcast.
Really.
We don't really follow like the Seedance and all of these guys. But it's like another big part of what's happening right now in AI. You remember that we had this guest on ATP that are creating like full-length movie, right? Like using AI. So they use like these models that we don't talk much about, and then you can just that adds up to the number basically.
Yeah. So, but the big question we have to ask ourselves to start this off is, what made the valuation? Because remember, I want to get back to the IPO stuff. I haven't looked at SpaceX's price yet today, but I want to get back to this IPO stuff, right? I'm not suggesting that OpenRouter was going to do an IPO, but what made their valuation go from $1.3 billion to over $7 billion, right? Because these investors, remember we talked about when Anthropic raised money at a $985 or $965 billion valuation, that part of that was really just to satisfy investors that wanted to come in pre-IPO. Right, there was an expectation that they were going to IPO, and I haven't read news that says that OpenRouter was going to. I mean, they've been acquired, so it's not. They're not going to IPO. That's not the case here. But it wasn't the case here that Capital G, which was one of the main investors at the $1.3 billion valuation, was pushing for either an acquisition or an IPO. So it wasn't that they were just going, we want to give you more money because we think your business is good and it's going to grow, right? And now Stripe, who has been working together with them, was like, we can't let this company just sit out there on its own. This emerging like machine-to-machine economy, clearly Stripe thinks is going to be as big a deal, if not a bigger deal, than Animoca Brands' Yatsu thought. What do you think?
I think there's a lot of different angles here to tackle this problem or this news. The first one is definitely like the Stripe being forward-looking is a really interesting angle. Yeah, definitely, because like we always talk about Shopify, for example, right? Like whose stock is going down so much since the beginning of the year because they are not participating at all into the AI transformation, the AI revolution. It looks like Stripe where it's not obvious at first, like that they have a role to play. They should just do like Shopify, which is doing nothing and processing payments for people and just stay out, basically, right?
Right.
Like it's not obvious that Stripe, a payment processor that's basically just, accept your credit card on an e-commerce website, is going to be involved in AI, right? Like they don't have they don't have infrastructure, they don't build models, they work with plenty of different clients all around the world. Like it's not like an obvious thing. But so that's why that's the first very interesting thing, is that they are getting involved. They are going into AI. They want to participate. They want to do something, and it looks like they want to do much more than just payments, right? And so this is the first thing that is really interesting to me. Also, it's not the first time that Stripe is hinted as like going into AI, like with with the agentic payment that you have mentioned, the micro transaction. It looks like they stay in the AI news for some reason, right? Like they are included into the AI conversation. Like yes, and once again, it was not super obvious that they would be. So I think that's the first one. Then the second thing that is interesting is like, what is OpenRouter doing exactly? Like I was looking at like what do they actually do?
It forced you to
And
look, though, didn't it?
for sure, because like I've never used OpenRouter myself. I know them, I've
Right.
heard the name, right?
Yep.
Like I've
Yeah, but
heard
it
the
forced
name.
you to look, and I think it's going to force everybody to look. Sorry, go ahead.
And so I know it's there, like I know it's a player, but I've never really had any like any
Yep.
any opportunities to try, or any needs also to try their product. And so basically, like from what I understand, what you can get with OpenRouter is that you get one API, so you connect to their API, and
Yep.
then with just one provider, they are going to connect you to every provider that they have in their catalog. So at the moment, over 400. Okay, so instead of creating an account with OpenAI, instead of creating an account with Quen, with Kimi, with all of these guys that we always talk about, and let me check if they have Anthropic, for example.
Yeah, because those guys are always the outlier, aren't they?
So they have Anthropic as well. So you can connect to Anthropic, to OpenAI, to Quen, to Mistral, all of these guys, and then you can just by using just one API. So you don't need to create an account everywhere. You don't need to subscribe to everybody's API. You just subscribe to one, and they give you access to all. So which means it's really cool, because then you can route the different model provider. You can try different things, and you can optimize your AI workflow so much more efficiently. And because right now, like let's be frank, there is so many new models being released in the last 30 days. It's just absolutely insane. We should actually like do a
Do it.
counter but just like
Exactly.
tell us, okay, in the last 30 days we got 20
How many
new
new
models
models have been
released.
launched? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's just like insane. Like the pace have just increased so much. So it's really hard to know, like, okay, am I sure that in 3 months I'm going to still use this model? So having one platform that gives you just access to all makes switching models, testing stuff so much easier. You don't need once again to create an account and connect the API for everybody. So I think this is what they do. Then in terms of pricing, because this is like always like every time, Michael, I look at a business that I don't know well, first thing I do is I go to the pricing page. It may
Why
be
is that?
weird, but it helped me understand like exactly what they do in a much better way.
Yeah, of course,
because
of course, because you can see how they're making money, right?
because then you can see how they are making money, what's included into each tier, and then from there I can understand what they are bringing me, which means what they are doing, basically, right? So when I look at their pricing page, it looks like they are billing you for API costs, and they are taking the 5% cut on top.
5.5%, Martin.
5.5 exactly. Thank you very much for being precise, Michael. And actually, let me show that on screen so everybody can follow with
Yeah.
us. They are charging you 5.5% on top of the API cost. So that is another thing that is really interesting. Who is still paying for API costs right now? Like who? Like,
And why?
like,
And why? You
and
have to ask
why?
why, right?
And
Because you
why?
figured out a way, we figured out a way to
I
not
mean,
pay for API costs from having multiple
everybody.
models. But do you think there's
Exactly.
a little bit of sort of institutional, I don't know what else to call it, like inertia. The word in my mind is laziness, but like some sort of institutional inertia, right? Not momentum. Momentum and inertia, two different things, but inertia of just like,
With
you know what I mean? We've been using OpenRouter back when we were token maxing. let's just keep, and it seems to be working. Let's just keep doing that. But now we can use them to switch back and forth from model to model, as opposed to doing it ourselves. And maybe there's a little bit of, like I said, institutional inertia going, I don't want to connect to another API. I don't want to connect to another MCP. I just want to have one place where I can go and get all of my stuff.
I think yes, if it was pretty much the same price. But here it's not pretty much the same
But it's
price.
not pretty much the same
Like
price at all. But it doesn't
at
matter,
all.
does it, to some people?
I I mean, like let's just remind people that when we are paying a $200 per month subscription at Claude, we don't know exactly like how much they subsidize, but it's pretty much the same as around 3, 4, maybe $5,000 of API cost. So we are talking the 20-25x. So which means if you have 4 or 5 accounts with Claude and you
It's
pay
still
like
cheaper.
$800, $1,000 per month, your API cost would be 25,000. So sure, I agree. Some people have a lot of money, they are super rich and everything, but at that scale, like really, like where you don't care to spend 25,000 when you could spend only 1,000, like a 25x, it feels a little bit too much for me. So maybe they don't. Like maybe the bulk of their clients are not doing OpenAI and Anthropic. Maybe they are more using like the Qwen and the NVIDIA and the Mistral and the DeepSeek and all the smaller models that still charge per API. And that I don't know if all of them have a plan. Like I think Kimi, they have a plan, like a monthly plan, just like Claude and OpenAI. But I
Yep.
don't know if Qwen and DeepSeek and all of them
They
have.
must, though, right? I mean, that's the business model that everybody's been using. It would be shocking if they didn't have some kind of monthly plan, no?
But so DeepSeek is so cheap. So like like when they got released, there were like this big argument where actually we don't need that. It's like it's $15 anyway. Like
Oh, right. So you just use the
it's
API
so
because it
cheap.
doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. It was so cheap that it didn't really matter. So that's why like, I'm not super sure about what are the economics on the open weight models. But maybe it's so much cheaper that it's actually changed slightly, right? So that's why that would be my first thought. Like people are not really using them with OpenAI and Anthropic, more with the open weight model. And if we look at that this way, they must have had an insane growth in the last 6 months. Like look at the state of open weight model 6 months ago, look at where it is now. Like it is just absolutely insane, right? And so they must be.
Who do you think knows more? Because can we just get back to this idea about like why would Stripe buy them? What are they getting for it? I would suggest to you, right, that once you understand the pricing, which I think is important, and you're right, this is the best way to understand what a company's business model is, and again, whether it's a SaaS product or an AI, because this is like an AI orchestration product, right?
Yeah.
And here's the other interesting thing, is that, I mean, there's so many interesting things going on here, but like we have suggested over time that buying infrastructure in the AI space is better than buying the model space, right? So what OpenRouter has said was, we're model agnostic. We don't care what model you use. But if we have access through our API connectivity to 400 models, and it's probably going to grow like every day as new models come up, they're just going to keep connecting to them, right?
Yes.
But what's the one thing that they know that there's no way that any other model provider could know, and frankly, that no other company knows except for OpenRouter? And it's a rhetorical, I'm not going to ask you to answer it, but here's the thing that they know. They know about real AI consumption. They know who's using what. They know what they're using it for. They know what they're paying for it. And they have 100 trillion tokens of real world activity, according to what I said in the intro. And that provides and will continue to provide, what's the right word, visibility into how demand moves between models, right? We talk, you know this, you see me do it on ATP Insights. You also see me do it on AGTP Insights when we have guests, and I always ask them, do you switch between models?
Yes.
I bet even they don't know precisely at the same level of detail and granularity that OpenRouter knows about how a huge swath of the population is going, we use this model for that, we use that model for this, we switch back and forth, we know what we're doing here, we know what we're doing there. I bet individual companies don't have as much data on this because they haven't built the infrastructure to monitor it in the same way that OpenRouter has, because OpenRouter has to know, because remember, if they have 400 models, they probably want to have, again, if they're doing their orchestration properly, they probably want to have just like Amazon. Think about this in the context of Amazon.com, right? The e-commerce company. The products that sell the best, they want to have the most visibility. They're essentially, I'm going to put it in air quotes, but they're at the top of the list,
Yes.
right? So when people log into like television sets, the best-selling TV is probably there, or the one that has the best ad associated with it. So
Mhm.
do you think as well that OpenRouter is going to now have an advertising business as well? Remember, how much money does Amazon make in their ad business? $65 billion a year. So OpenRouter, now that has 400 products, essentially 400 models, can now go, hey, if you want better visibility, you can pay us
Yeah.
to be at the top of the list. And I don't think anybody has considered this yet, but that's the connectivity that I see. That's the dot connectivity I think that you and I see when we think about this model, is not just the pricing, but what other businesses can they get into? And imagine that Stripe now adds that business into their payment business, which is one of the most dominant payment businesses in the world. But if they can then get all of the information about how people are using these AI models, and then what people are actually doing, how they're actually doing it, and then what they're paying for, Stripe is going to have a huge leg up on all the other payment and even the payment orchestration companies as well. What do you think?
Oh, for sure. I think, but like I don't see like how this is related to their payment business. To me, like it's just the same business model where
Because
Stripe,
because because they've integrated their payment business into OpenRouter, so that people that are using AI and OpenRouter's technology, right, can use now Stripe's payment stuff as well, right? So Stripe has something called MPP. Let me see what it stands for, because I think it is
okay,
Machine Payment Protocol. Give me a second. Yeah, Machine Payments Protocol. Okay, and
okay,
they introduced this back in March. It provides a spec for agents and services to coordinate payments programmatically, enabling micropayments, recurring payments, blah, blah, blah. Now, who's going to know better than anybody else where all those payments are taking place? Well, OpenRouter
but
is going to know.
so in terms of what, so it means like the companies who are using OpenRouter, they
Yep.
are going to make payments. That's what you mean? Like for example, if
So,
I
th-
ask,
so they're going to see who's using what for agentic AI and for agentic payments. And OpenRouter is going to know that better than anybody else knows it. And that's going to filter into the business that the MPP, so the Machine Payments Protocol that Stripe introduced back in March of 2026, they're going to have information that nobody else is going to have on how payments are happening and which models people are using for their agentic AI and their agentic payment processing.
yes, okay, it's true. Like it's part of the stack, right? Like if tomorrow agentic payment becomes a thing, which is a long shot, I think, but let's say
Wait, say it again. If what becomes a long shot?
like agentic payments. Like right now, I don't see why I
Right.
would give.
So you and I have not come along around this agentic payment thing, right?
No,
Because you
but
and I have talked about this. It's like, if I have a credit
but
card, why am I making agentic payments?
but also, I mean, there's a millions reason why I think this is not going to happen. I saw Cloudflare last week. They launched a way, Michael, that we spoke a lot on ATP. That people in crypto they told us a lot about that, where you can start charging people who go on your website through this agentic payment thing. So you can say, hey, look, if you want to see my page, that's 1 cent. Okay, like if you want to go on my website, that's 1 cent. And then
Micropayment, yeah.
that's micropayment that is embedded directly at the Cloudflare level. Sorry, at the Cloudflare level, so it's very easy to integrate for all of your traffic. And so okay, sure, like I mean that sounds cool on paper, but who want to do that? Like I really wonder what's the use case. Is there really a massive use case that I'm missing somewhere where there's a lot of people who want to charge to access their website? Okay, maybe they want to prevent, like bots and scrapers and just AI provider to come on your super highly valuable website that are all the great information in the world, and you want to make sure that you protect your IP, your assets, your content, and people who access that they pay. Okay, maybe, but like that's what? That's like 0.1% of the population. That's like
Today,
almost nobody. So, and today, if you really have such a high value information, then you write a book, then you do videos. So once again, that's the people who are doing that, who are participating into this information selling economy. It's super tiny. It's really, really tiny. Like e-commerce is already super small compared to retail. Like that's like 15 to 20%, depending on the countries. Like the information economy is even smaller than that. So that's why I'm thinking like I've always thought that Stripe talking about agentic payment was more a way for them to stay engaged into the conversation, more like a marketing thing rather than a real business opportunity. Because I don't see how, as a business, this is going to become big. Because I see so many problems and a very tiny market.
Okay, can I ask you another question though?
Yes, go ahead.
So just first of all, just because you and I don't believe in agentic payments doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
No, definitely
That's
not.
the first thing. And the second thing is a company like Stripe has way more visibility on whether agent, like they built NPP for a reason, most likely because either their clients or their clients' users are telling them we want to make smaller payments and we want to have a protocol for doing this. And because we're using agentic AI now to make payments, large and small, we just want to have a simple way to connect to all of the payments that we make. And that's why this machine payment protocol actually came about. I don't think that the Stripe was sitting around going, you know what, we need to have a protocol to do this when nobody else is asking for it. That doesn't make any sense to me, right? They have visibility onto things that you and I cannot see because we're not a payment company and we're not a payment orchestration company. But the second thing to say is this. Whether people are paying for the API or a monthly subscription for their access to these models, right? All these 400 models, how do you think people are paying OpenRouter today?
How do they pay? I think they just put their credit card.
Maybe, but maybe they've given their credit card to Stripe and they're using Stripe to pay. Maybe that's what they're going to encourage. From now on, maybe OpenRouter goes, from now on, the best payment method to use for our service is Stripe.
So for sure, I mean, maybe OpenRouter already use Stripe, right? And so maybe actually Stripe already knows how much money OpenRouter makes because OpenRouter is a client of Stripe. I mean, we can try to sign up and we'll see if they use Stripe. That's pretty simple. But so that's what sure. Like I think to me, my biggest feeling here is that they have the same business model. Stripe move money from here to there and take a cut. And OpenRouter does the same thing. They move token from here to here and they take a cut. Same thing. It's the exact same model. That's a business model that Stripe knows really, really well. They know how to scale that globally. And they believe that if they get into the AI economy, doing something else, something different that's not necessarily related to their business, that's probably the one thing that they understand the best because it is, once again, almost the same business, just applied to something completely different. It's like, you know how to run a French restaurant, tomorrow you open an Italian restaurant, a lot of things are going to be the same. Like, it's not going to be exact same food.
The food at the Italian restaurant is going to be way better, but otherwise, very similar.
It's going to be very similar, much worse afterwards. Like why you would like to do that? But I feel that's more this type of thing. Like I think they think that they know the business much like very well, and that they can then grow it. Also, something interesting that we can look at is you can actually see on the OpenRouter website what are the most popular models, and they actually give you a list of like the most used models in the last 7 days. And number one, DeepSeek, 2.1 trillion token in the last 7 days. Number two, Tencent HY3, never heard of it. Number three, GPT 5.6 Luna. So very interesting, OpenAI. Number four, the DeepSeek V4 Flash back of April. So still a lot of people use this one. Number five, Xiaomi Mimo V2.5. Number six, ZAI GLM 5.2, the one that has been released in July. Number seven, DeepSeek. Number eight, Claude. Number nine, Gemini, NVIDIA, then Poolside, Minimax, and then a lot of them. So my first thing, number two and number five are Tencent and Xiaomi. Number one and number four are DeepSeek. Do they have all of their clients in China? We have never heard about Tencent and Xiaomi. Like
So
who in the
Xiaomi we've
West,
kind of heard about. We know that they were running an AI. We know that they were building and running an AI model, which is
but
interesting, right?
who?
Because Xiaomi
Yeah.
is like has always tried to be kind of the Apple of China. Making very sort of affected
True.
products. When Xiaomi does their sort of worldwide developer conference type of thing, or when their CEO gets on stage, he's wearing a pair of jeans and like a mock black turtleneck as well. Like he was trying to, I'm not kidding though, he was trying to channel Steve Jobs. So the fact that they've actually built their own model where Apple has now consolidated all the models into one
Yes.
section, right, means that they're doing something different. But yeah, I do find it really interesting that DeepSeek, Tencent, and then DeepSeek again for number 4. Z.ai is at least on my list, number 5. Mimo is by Xiaomi. DeepSeek again,
Yeah.
and
So
then you have Claude, Gemini, and Nematron, which I've never. It's a weird name, Nematron.
so that's what like I mean we have never talked about like who is using Tencent and Mimo from Xiaomi in the Western world. Like who is doing
Nobody.
that? So
Nobody.
that's what like the fact that DeepSeek that number 1, 2, 4, and 5 and 6 are Chinese. I'm like, okay, like do they have all of their client in China first of all, where it
Right.
will make ton of sense because if all of these models provider like DeepSeek for example they don't have a subscription, then it would make a lot of sense to actually go to OpenRouter and get one API to connect to everybody. That would make things much simpler for the Chinese markets because you have to connect to the API anyway. That's the only way you can access the models. So better just do it one time for everybody, basically. So OpenRouter share of client, like, do we know? Because if I remember correctly, Stripe is not open in China. Like, I don't think Stripe process any payment in China. Is Stripe open in China? It's really, really hard for Stripe to do business in this type of countries. So no, Stripe is not allowed to do business in China, just like they're not in India and in many other countries. I don't think in Thailand neither they are opened.
Oh, I think Stripe is available in Thailand.
So you may be able to pay, but can you open an account if you're a Thai business? That's
I think
what
so.
I mean. That's
I
what
think
I
so
mean.
because I remember the guy. I used to know the guy. If I remember correctly, I used to know the guy that actually was the country head for Thailand for
Okay.
Stripe.
Okay, and yes, you're right. Stripe is open in Thailand indeed since 2022. Yep.
Yeah,
So
I know
that's
that
why.
guy.
So
Used to
they are
know.
not in China. I wonder if OpenRouter, all of our clients are in China. Because
Could
once
be
again,
though, right? I mean,
yep. So because we use Tencent, we use Xiaomi. I really wonder.
oh,
And tell
so
us
sorry.
in
I don't think all of OpenRouter's clients are in China, but I think that DeepSeek, most of their clients are in China. Is that what you were suggesting, or no? You
no, no,
thought
no, 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 no.
OpenRouters? No,
No, no,
go ahead.
OpenRouter's users. I don't say I don't mean that all of them are in China. I mean maybe most of them are in China because
Interesting.
when we look at the top models that are used on the platforms, DeepSeek, a lot of people use them in the West, in Asia or in the US, in Europe. Like it's like a global brand. Like everybody use DeepSeek. But that's not the case for Tencent and Mimo from Xiaomi. So these guys to be number 1, I mean to be so high in the rankings, means that there are people, I think, from China who are using them and a lot of them. So that's why I think DeepSeek is so high because there is everybody globally who use them plus the Chinese market. And that's why when I look at this list, I'm very surprised by these models are so high. If the list was just DeepSeek, for example, and then
Mm.
OpenAI and Claude, and maybe ZAI as well, and Quen, maybe like all the one basically that we talk about in the West, okay, I wouldn't bring this up. But that's not the case. There's plenty of models here that are, I think, only well known in China. So that's why I think it's pretty interesting to me. And Stripe is not open in China. So maybe they see like, okay, guys, you are doing something amazing in China. You didn't even scratch the surface of the Western world, and that's what we can help you with.
So below the list, are you on the You're on the OpenRouter website, yeah?
Yes, you want me to send you a
So
link?
Martin, below the list for like the top, like the leaderboard, there's something called top models by task.
Okay, you want to send me the list?
Yeah, because I want you to click, I want you to like mouse over it because I do think it's fascinating.
Okay.
If you go look at top models by task,
Can you send me the link to this page?
it's just a leaderboard table. 1 second. Yeah, 1 second. 1 second.
Okay.
Boom.
Great. Let's open this for everybody. Okay. Leaderboards.
And then just like scroll down a little bit. Yeah, you see those the heat map there?
Top
So
models
just
by
mouse
task.
over the thing that says top models by task, right? Mouse over where it says classification. What's the model there?
That's GPT 5.6 Sol.
That's the biggest box. Now go over to workflow execution. What's the biggest model there?
Claude Opus 4.8.
So far you've got GPT, what is it, 5.6? Sol, and workflow execution is Claude. And then go to code generation. What does it say?
Claude Opus 5, this one.
That's the biggest box in that green square as well. And then what's the biggest one in data extraction?
Data
No, just the blue one. The blue one at the end. The blue one.
The blue one. Claude
What is
Opus
that?
4.8.
So for data extraction, you have Claude. For code generation, you have Claude. For workflow execution, you have Claude. And for classification, you have GPT. And even for content writing, you have Claude. So like, what is this telling you in the context of the models that are being used the most are not being used for the things that people are doing the most?
So let's add one more information to this. You see on the right, you have a little drop down that says share of spend and share of tokens. So all the information that we just gave is in terms of spend. So how much people spend to do the task. If we if we switch to tokens, so how much tokens are used to do this in total, now the data is completely different. Now it's only Chinese models at every task, basically.
Right.
I don't see
that's okay. But that's why I wanted you to do this, because I'd already clicked on that box, but I wanted you to go through that first thing first and then do the second thing second, right? But what is that telling you?
So to me, it tells me that first, the Western model, GPT and Anthropic, are way more expensive than the Chinese, and so that's why they top all the rankings in terms of spend. But when it comes to usage, how much people are actually using the models, now it's all the Chinese model who are topping the charts. So but
can we go a little bit deeper? So just because the token usage is higher doesn't mean that the output is better. Do you understand what I mean? So we can extrapolate from the spending stuff that people are happy to spend money on Opus and on Claude, on Opus and on and GPT. Right? But maybe, in other words, we don't understand like the level of efficiency of all these models as well. Just because you use more tokens doesn't mean necessarily getting more stuff done, does it?
I think if you look at the total token used on a model, you can have a better idea of how many people use it and how much they use it compared to the spend. Especially because DeepSeek is like 100 times cheaper than Opus, right? So which means like just to get to the same level of spend, you need to have 100 times more usage on DeepSeek. Right, so even if they have just 50 times more clients and the clients do roughly the same thing, okay, then you would still be like half the cost on DeepSeek, right? Like so, it's like half the total spend on DeepSeek. Like the gap is massive. We're not talking about like just a model that is 10% cheaper or 15% cheaper. We're talking about things that are 100 times cheaper, right? So that's what I think. That's why that's why I was mentioning that, because it looks like the usage is heavily towards the Chinese model and not only the one that we used to see in the Western world, right? And so that's why I'm thinking like, who use Mimo? Who use HY3 by Tencent?
It's got to be Chinese companies and Chinese individuals and Chinese developers, because
it got to be them, right?
It has to, because like ask your best friends who do development, right? Because again, we know that most of the stuff that happens here is either workflow execution or code generation, right?
Exactly.
And who's using like which American company or which big Western company is using Mimo?
I've never heard of it. So either there is a huge information here, and from now on we should ask everybody on the podcast: do you use
Mimo? Do you know Xiaomi has a model?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And let's do that right now. From now on, Michael, we asked HY3 from Tencent and Mimo from Xiaomi to everybody.
I made a note to myself. HY3.
Exactly. Let's ask that to our next 15 guests from the US. If just a single one of them tell us like, what's that? I think we are going to have our answer, right?
Yeah, I think that's going to
But
be our answer. Is what's that? I think that's going to be
yes.
the answer.
And so that's what I think to me it would make ton of sense because if you're in China and you want to use the Chinese model, once again, DeepSeek doesn't have subscriptions. You need to connect to the API anyway. So then instead of connecting to 25 APIs, you just connect to one OpenRouter and they give you access to all of them. Where in the West, we have a little bit less of that problem because we use the subscription on Anthropic or OpenAI, so we don't really need to connect to 20 different models. I mean,
Right.
some people still do it, some people still love to use OpenRouter, but the problem and the behavior of the use case may be actually much bigger for the Chinese market, which is massive compared to the West, and so that would explain why they are so big. So that's why I would love to know now what is their customer distribution, like how are they so big basically.
Right. But so that's all well and good, right? But the real question here is, what does Stripe gain? Like, now, when you go back and think about it at a higher level,
Mhm.
not what's happening on a model by model basis, not where the biggest spend is, right? Not which is the top model that's being used for the number of tokens, but what is Stripe actually gaining by doing this that it didn't already have by having the partnership? So first of all, it gains control. Right now, it can control who gets to have access to OpenRouter. Right? They get to control how people pay for using OpenRouter, and now they also have a much deeper and they've done this before, right? They now have a much deeper relationship with AI developers. Okay, and they've done this before because Stripe actually became, again, what's the right way to say it? Stripe actually became a really important company in the payment business because developers stopped thinking about payments as something they needed to build themselves.
Yes, that was like the number one. Like, I mean, like, I can tell too because I've been using Stripe for like over 10 years as a client.
Exactly.
And the one thing that Stripe has solved over 10 years ago was to make it so simple, so easy, so straightforward to actually accept payment on your website. I mean, it has never
Right.
been as easy as what Stripe has done. So for
Yep.
developers, for non-developers, it was the best, simplest, quickest platform. Also, that always worked. Like you just
But think
install
of it.
them.
When you set up your e-commerce business, you didn't
Yeah.
think about who am I going to use for payments. You just
No,
like
no, it was
signed up
just
for Stripe.
you just use Stripe because once you set them up, they just work all the time. There is never a problem
Right.
with Stripe. There's never like an update that's weird. There is never like a function, a bot. I feel like it's been like 3 years I didn't log into Stripe. This is how good it works. You
Yeah.
don't
So because
need
you
to
had
log
no
in.
problems, nothing to fix, no
No,
debugging, no nothing. So
nothing.
imagine now applying that. What's the next big thing? Because when they did that,
Yep.
the biggest growing thing in the world was e-commerce.
Yes.
Now the
Yes.
fastest growing thing in the world is AI and the
Yep.
infrastructure around AI. And they're just like,
So
done.
that's
We're
why.
going to do the same thing, but now we're going to own the thing as opposed to just making payments available for that thing.
Exactly. So that's why I
Because
say,
imagine if they'd bought Shopify. Sorry to interrupt you, because that's what
yeah.
it would have been like, right?
Yeah, but then they wouldn't participate into the AI race, right? I think this is why they want to buy OpenRouter instead, because it is the exact same business. They do the same thing, OpenRouter and Stripe, just in very different verticals. They may be related to each other or not, like maybe or
But does it?
maybe not. Eh,
Doesn't Shopify do the same exact thing? They let you build a website and they take a little bit and piece of every sale you
Gosh,
make.
there is much more to that to Shopify. There is all the
Yeah, but that's my
infrastructure.
point.
There
That's my
is
point. Like maybe Stripe regrets not buying Shopify, and they saw that opportunity go by because it got too expensive. Remember, they paid $7 billion for this, but what's Shopify's valuation?
must be 80 or less, maybe much less now.
Let's now, let me look at it. No, it's $193 billion,
Oh, okay, okay.
and their revenue growth, according to
Yeah,
Gemini,
it's big. It's growing now.
it's 33% year over year.
Okay, and they are done how much the stock this year?
I don't know, but probably a lot. But the point is this: is that maybe they saw that and thought, okay, we could have bought at some point. You could have bought Shopify for $8 billion, right?
I
And
think
they
Shopify
missed
has
out on the
always been.
control.
I
Say
think
again.
Shopify has always been bigger than Stripe. That's Shopify was built in 2005. Stripe maybe like 2010, something like that. Like much after. Stripe launch dates. Yeah, September 2011.
So
they were
Stripe's valuation is almost the same thing as
yes, now.
Yeah.
But in 2011, like when did Shopify IPO? When did Shopify IPO? Because in May 2015. So Stripe was only 4 years old when they IPO'd. And Stripe has been massive. Like, I mean, they got pretty big really quick, actually. Like, it was not like a slow growth for Stripe, but they were only present in the West for a long time. Then they started to expand to like regions like Asia, for example. Like Stripe in Singapore is launched like a couple of years ago, like really recent.
Was it that recent?
Yeah. 2016 actually. Sorry, that's my mistake. 2016 for Singapore, but 2022 for Thailand. So only 4 years ago. So yeah, so I think Shopify was always much bigger than Stripe. Stripe also is not a public company. They are still private, so that's why like all the numbers that we see in terms of valuation are either like the private second market basically,
Secondary market, for this
yes,
stuff,
it's mostly the secondary market, right? Because it's been a while
Yeah.
that Stripe raised funds. So whether Shopify, their valuation is actually come from the public market. So it's more closer to the truth, let's say. It's closer to the truth.
It's closer, but depending on, I mean, I don't know, you're making a huge value judgment there when you say the public markets are better at valuing companies than the private markets, but I'll leave that conversation for another time.
Exactly. But yes, super interesting acquisition from Stripe. Yeah, let's see what they do. But they look like they are forward looking and they want to be involved into AI. I mean, like the Collison brother, they're super young, no? Like, I mean, they have plenty of energy still to do something. So
I don't know how old they are, but like they're not 50 or 60. They're probably 39 to 42 is my guess.
37 and 35.
Yeah, so close enough.
They built something massive with Stripe. They are still super young. Like, I mean, they have their entire career ahead of them still. So they are credible.
So we know that Stripe does this thing called Stripe Sessions, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that they announced at Stripe Sessions was streaming payments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they can charge for AI usage as individual tokens are consumed. So just think about the amount of data that they're getting now that they own OpenRouter.
Mm-hmm.
They know every time a token is used, and they believe, is my guess, that a token, an AI token, is just going to be fungible with money. But because essentially you're spending a token the same way you'd spend money. But you need a way to pay for that token usage. And Stripe has introduced this streaming payments thing that every time you use a token, you make a micropayment. And I think that's where this MPP thing actually matters. That's how they can actually do streaming payments.
Yep. Let's see. I'm really not convinced that we're going to get into a world where we're going to do this type of things.
You just hate this.
Yeah, because I don't see, like, I mean, I don't see the use case. I think, like, how many times do we use our credit cards or our bank card on a new website? That's something new, something we've never been before, something we have never bought from before. When I look at my own use case, it's almost never. Like everything that I buy are either through airlines that know me already, Grab, who have already my card, Shopee or Lazada or Amazon, who they all have my cards. That's 90% of my payments.
But you're an individual, right? You can't think about this as like one guy using Stripe to make payments. You have to think about this as institutions that are connected to many new things. And every time they have a new vendor, new whatever, maybe they do connect to it. And if they're connected to OpenRouter and they're using AI and their AI usage is increasing, we know it's increasing because we saw that they use trillions of tokens through OpenRouter. And every time a token gets spent, Stripe can make a streaming payment for it. And that's an agentic payment usage case that's never going to apply to you because you're not using trillions of tokens. But whether it's for undercover media or not, right? It's just the scale is different and the speed is different as well. But some of these big institutions are going to use AI more and more. And they think that this MPP protocol is going to allow them to make those payments in ways that we don't do.
But,
Right? Because you just give
right,
your credit card to like, say it again?
but right now, like for the API, like they just give you a bill at the end of the month, or you just pay credits and then your credit just go down and that's it. Like there's no need for streaming payments, right? It
But
just
not
works
according
well.
to them. They said, like, according to Stripe, they're not according to them. According to them, they've introduced like streaming payments, and every time
Yeah.
a token gets paid, they can actually take or make a payment.
Yes, so that's what I mean. Like, I mean, right now the system that we have works. I mean, I don't see why my system of being charged at the beginning of the month or at the end of the month is really a problem. But yeah, let's see. That's my own use case. That's how I see payments.
Who's
Let's
the
see
old guy on this show?
Sorry. No, but like I think that if we remove this thing of agency payments, like it is super cool. Like, do I believe that OpenRouter is going to get much bigger? Definitely yes, right? Like I think OpenRouter has a massive growth opportunity, being the middleman between the developers and the providers. Their massive risk is that the provider can start offering subscription that just completely undercut them. Their opportunity is to launch the subscription themselves. So if tomorrow they find a way to package this subscription and to distribute them, I think this is super cool to have. Like in a $200 plan, you can have access to all the models, right? With like different usage quota for each models. That would be insane, because then you wouldn't need to have like a $200 plan with Anthropic plus a $100 plan with these guys plus a $100 plan with that guy. You just put a $500 plan per month with OpenRouter and you have access to everything in just one place. I think this is the type of offering that would make us try much more models, because that would be included into our
Can you put up the second tweet that I put in the list?
So that type of tweet would be super cool.
Can you put up the second tweet?
From Akash Gupta?
That guy.
Okay.
Okay.
It's on.
Okay. So blah blah blah. So Stripe knows the numbers for OpenRouter better than anyone, because OpenRouter runs invoicing on Stripe, calculates taxes with Stripe. I'm reading from the middle, and screens fraud with Stripe Radar. So Stripe has been processing the company's money for years, watching the volume curve inside its own dashboard, going, "Oh my God."
So let's just like put one reserve to that. Outside of China, yes, we don't know how big the business of OpenRouter is in China. It may be big, and Stripe is not in China. Let's just.
Did you have dumplings for dinner tonight? Like, why are you so focused on China?
No, but that's. I mean,
do you have chopsticks in your hand? Like, what are we doing?
Have you ever heard about Tencent HI3, and that's the number 2 most used?
I have actually. Have you heard of Mimo? Finding Mimo? You've seen that movie, right?
So that's why.
Mimo, different movie.
That's true. Stripe may have information about some part of OpenRouter's business outside of China, and we don't know how big or how
okay,
big it is.
But let's be clear. Let's be clear, though, and you can argue with me all you want on this, but that means Stripe is not making any payments in China, which means that they don't care how big that business is in China, because they're not making any money from it. But Stripe has seen the growth ex-China.
Yes.
Okay, for years, and they've seen, because they can see, like, if you're using Stripe for your website, they can see the payments on your website as well.
Yes,
and the massive amounts of money that are going through there too. Right, so they're looking at the stuff that's happening at OpenRouter. They're looking at stuff on Martin's business and just going, "Wow, these two things are huge." Right, it's at the same time.
Yep.
But the growth curve has been really steep. Let's just run through this according to Akash Gupta. Yeah, thank you for this. Inference spend through OpenRouter ran, according to him, at $10 million annualized in October 2024. It crossed $100 million, so now it's what, 10 times bigger by May 2025, which is only 6 months later. And now it's implying $1 billion a year. Okay, and we're only a year after that. So they're seeing massive growth. Now that money is Stripe's money.
Yep.
Okay. And the deal, again, according to Akash Gupta, the deal also completes a pattern. Stripe closed its Metronome acquisition in July to get usage-based billing.
Okay.
Again, something you don't care about. In April, it shipped per token streaming payments, and wallets for AI agents.
Something
Martin,
I
look at
don't care
that.
about neither.
No. But it shipped. You can't ignore this fact that they shipped something
Yeah,
that
no,
has
for sure.
payments and wallets for AI agents.
Mm-hmm.
Because whether you want to use agents to pay or not, clearly somebody does. And now it owns the marketplace where developers actually pay for models, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, according to Akash Gupta, Stripe built a toll booth for internet commerce and takes 2.9%. It just spent $7 billion on the toll booth for AI compute. And for that one, they take 5.5%. And even if they cut it in half and make it closer to the 2.9%, which one is growing faster and has the most growth, more
Oh, for sure.
potential growth going?
That's for sure. This is I mean, this is exactly what we've been saying, right? Like this is this very similar business model. They take a cut for every token that they transfer, and yeah, like this is, and plus it has a lot of potential growth because right now we are just at the beginning of AI. Now Stripe is involved into that. Makes ton of sense. Yep.
So do you remember how I was completely wrong on the SpaceX thing?
Yep.
And I
And
just like, once it started going, and today it was like at 149. Now,
mm-hmm.
we were actually right in the first month or 6 weeks of what happened on this trade. So we can be proud of that, right? Because we said exactly what was going to have to happen after the IPO. But once we had more information, we changed our mind. And I think we're going to have to change our mind on agentic payments as well.
Yeah, I'm really waiting for more information then. But I am very happy to change my mind. Sorry?
The third tweet.
I'm very happy to change my mind. As soon as you will see me doing an agented payment, then you will be able to say, Martin, look.
But you can't generalize. So this is what one of my 9th grade teachers taught me. 10th grade, exactly. Sorry. You can't generalize from your own experience.
So I would say yes and no. I would say yes, that's true in general. You have to be careful. Not everyone is doing the same thing. But yes, in the sense of I am the target client, or I can understand pretty well what are the patterns and what people are doing. For example, Stripe. I am a client. I pay online. I use AI. I use AI agents, ton of them. So
don't use OpenRouter.
I don't use OpenRouter because I want a plan that they don't have yet, maybe.
Right.
And that's why I say there is an opportunity for them to convince me to become a client. So
they processed 100 trillion tokens. Like someone's there.
I know for sure, and so that's why we say maybe there's a lot of people from China as well who have the use case that I don't have. So that's why, like, even if I'm not the target client, I can understand what are exactly what they need, and that's why for agented payment, when I look at my usage of AI, the AI agent, and all of that, I'm like, okay, if you remove all the guys like me, who's left? And I don't see a lot of use cases, but let's see. And I'm really happy to change my mind.
I just want to go through this OX Sammy thing. Okay. Yep. Because what this, I'm presuming this is a guy, is saying that open source models are rapidly becoming intelligent. So this is where stuff gets interesting. For him, maybe not for you, but that's fair. Let's get this guy's opinion. OpenRouter gives agents, right? A single routing layer to choose the best model for each task.
Yeah.
Okay. And they should know that because OpenRouter has all the data. Stripe MPP, or so their machine payment protocol, gives those agents a native payment layer to autonomously pay for APIs, data, and services.
Okay.
You just can't argue with that. That's true, right?
Yes, that's what they do.
And now he's talking about on-chain stuff, which I don't really care about. But he basically makes this connectivity of open source intelligence, model routing, machine payments, on-chain execution, which is where a lot of the micropayments come in, the rails that allow trillions of agents to think, pay, and act autonomously, according to this guy, and according to Yatsu, will be invaluable. I don't do any of this stuff. So I don't have as much information as these guys do. But it's starting to make sense to me.
Okay. I'm waiting for the use case and I will change my mind. I'm really waiting for the use case. The first time that I see someone making payments with an agent and is very happy about it. Let's see. That's it. But,
Okay.
but
Can
by
you,
the way,
can you just page up a little bit? Just page up a
yes.
little bit. Scroll up a little
Okay.
bit. So
Okay.
people can see that blockchain, open chain. No. Just that chart there. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Open source models into OpenRouter, getting paid by Stripe using blockchain and agentic apps.
Yep. So let us know in the chat. Do you think agentic payment is going to be a thing? And do you have a use case? Please make me change my mind. Like, do you have a use case? Please
Just gonna be mad.
tell us now.
Today's my day for everyone to get mad at me.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have time?
Yes, we should.
You want to talk about Dario Amodei?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. So Dario Amodei is responding to a growing backlash against AI. Now, he actually published, you may just want to put up some, okay, you have that thing. That's a good thing there, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's put a pretty simple explanation around all of this. He thinks that the industry has a trust problem before it has a comms problem. I'm going to say it's both.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I think you and I have joked about this, but we've also been serious about it. We think both OpenAI and Anthropic have serious communications problems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm not talking about, and it appears to me that both of them have internal comms problems as well, where just like they're not being really good at communicating to their employees what they're trying to accomplish and why they're trying to accomplish it.
Yeah.
And Dario Amodei is saying, and this is a long post. Like, if you read, can you just put up maybe his post as well so people can get a, there it is, right? It's long.
Yes, it's really long.
But he also put it up in 2 pieces, yeah?
Yes.
Which I thought was super interesting. But the point is that he feels, go ahead.
And he got 10.6 million views on the second one, and
that's why this was actually
5 million views on
important
the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. So in total, 15 million views.
Yes.
It's not nothing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Do you think there's a case to pay for those views agentically, or no? You don't think so?
And who would pay for that?
I don't know.
That's really the question.
10 million, 15 million agentic payment. I'm just saying.
But like, would you pay 1 cent to see Dario's tweet?
NFW.
Okay, go ahead.
But these comments actually came out of a bigger exchange that he was having with an investor. That guy's name was Gavin Baker, about regulation and the concentration of AI power. I think this is actually really interesting because it goes back and forth for me, right? Like, these guys come out all the time and say, should we ban access to like these open weight models, but we don't want to have a concentration of power in just like the 4 remaining, and I'm simplifying this, right? Like the 4 remaining Western models. Like, I don't want to get into this either, but there was a whole other thing going on the internet today about how the United States and China are now making other countries choose between like whose AI are you going to use, and whose AI are you going to support. But anyway, the point here is that this investor, Gavin Baker, was arguing that regulation can make it so that a small number of companies can get really well entrenched and that nobody else can then compete with them. And Dario Amodei obviously doesn't want people to think that. And because he's bad at communication, he rejected that framing as just much too simple and said that AI already has some structural forces that are pushing it towards concentration because frontier development just requires so much money. And look, this is something that I've been saying all year, is that at the end of the day, and I simplify this as well by just saying a duopoly, right? Like, you have Android and iOS. Okay. You have Windows and Mac OS. Like, there are just 2 of them that most of the world uses. I'm not going to go so far as to say that the AI world is going to end up in a duopoly, but it feels likely. Right. And maybe that's structural because that's the way every business just ends up. Every hyper-scaled business, not the hyperscalers, but every hyper-scale business ends up just because it's so expensive to run and so expensive to distribute, which is one of the things you talk about a lot. And that means that it really comes down to the people that have enough money to spend. And that's why in the US, if you look at it, like OpenAI has raised a ton of money, Anthropic has raised a ton of money, Facebook already has a ton of money, and SpaceX raised a ton of money and has a ton of money too. And that's why they're so far ahead of everybody else in model development. Even Amazon has not committed any money to building a model that anybody uses, have they?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Or if they do, maybe they try. Maybe they try something on the side and it failed, so we don't know. But yeah, no idea. But I mean,
Right.
like, yes, no idea.
So what's your call on this? Like about his commentary on the growing backlash to artificial intelligence?
I think there's like, I think it's a multifaceted problem because they have been scaring everybody about AI
I'm glad you go there
for
because that's the next thing I want to talk about. But go ahead.
for years. Like once again, like let's just pull up the GPT-2 model is too dangerous to be released, right? Like I mean, I really like this article because it really just put everything into context, right?
Mm.
Like it is dated. Wait, when is what's the date of it? I hope we can find. OpenAI built a text generator solution it's considered too dangerous to be released February 17, 2019, exactly, from TechCrunch. So we are not talking about like some third world, somewhere, some guy would give his opinion. No, that's TechCrunch, who says 17 February, 2019, OpenAI says new natural language model GPT-2 is maybe too dangerous to be released. GPT-2, my dear. Right now we are GPT 5.5 or 5.6, right? So
5.6, yeah.
5.6. So that's what I think they have been scaring everybody for years. Really, like that has been the number one
Let's just
marketing
say forever.
strategy.
Let's just say
Forever,
forever.
yes,
Yeah.
forever.
Okay.
I mean, maybe like let's be precise here. Like it's Anthropic and OpenAI that has been scaring everybody forever because Google has been working on AI forever, for even much longer than them, and they haven't been scaring everybody with AI, right? That they have been much more working on their side, not really talking about it. But once OpenAI and Anthropic went out to the world, first marketing strategy scare everybody with AI. So when you say it's too dangerous to be released, and then plus you add into your communication like it's going to take your job, people are going to have to change their job. Like at some point, I remember Sam Altman, I think a year or two ago, he was talking about like creating this fund so then people can have like a guaranteed income in case they lose their job and all of these things. Like he was trying to be the white knight of like, yeah, don't worry, I will take your job, but I'm going to create like some income for you.
I'm gonna
Like
give you some money. Don't worry about it.
yeah,
You'll get paid.
don't worry about it. So, like so when you do this type of stuff, then let's also consider this. Like there is people in the bubble like us, which means we use AI, we know the capabilities, we know
Right.
what it can do, what it can't do. We have employee, we have partners, we know like we know where to put AI, where not to put AI, where we need people, we see people evolve, we train people, like we are involved into what it actually means to lose your job or to replace people with AI. We know the limitation, we know what's possible. But this part of the population that knows what's going on is what, 0.1% of the total population? And
At
so
the most, yeah.
99.9% of the population, they have no clue about whether it's true or not. And so the first inclination when you see all of these big media talking about how dangerous it is, it's just to trust them, right? And so because the media also, they like when it's sensational, when it's bad news and blah blah blah, then it just makes 99.9% of the population being so exposed to AI is bad, AI is going to take your job, AI is too dangerous, and then you complain that there's a backlash against AI. Like really? Like
But
are you really surprised?
but is he complaining or is he just explaining? So here's the thing. His contention
Okay.
is, hey, I've said some stuff that's scary, but I haven't spent my entire time describing only the dangers of it. Like this is what he's saying, right? And he's referencing, this is what I think is hilarious though. He said, I wrote an essay in 2024 called Machines of Loving Grace,
Okay.
describing potentially enormous benefits of artificial intelligence. But that was 2 years ago. And in the interim, I don't remember any of his essays being like, hey, this is going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Exactly. I think this is one of the
So he can push back all he wants on this stuff.
yeah.
And the other thing that's really true is you can say, of all the big promises, again, like you said, that Sam Altman made about like, hey, I'll pay you money and all this other stuff, putting a fund together to say like, we may take your job, but we're not going to take your life. and Dario Amodei going, hey, I'm not the most negative guy in the world. I've also said some positive stuff. They've also made some promises about like how AI is going to benefit humanity, right? Do we have any examples of how AI has benefited humanity in the last, like, I don't know, 3 years? Any? Humanity. I'm not saying humans. I'm saying humanity.
Okay.
This big overriding thing that we all do every day when we wake up, our lives better. Like I can tell you that airplanes have made humanity better, right? Because you can go visit your family in a way you never could have done. So think about if you were living halfway around the world from your family 100 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's impossible. Yeah.
And something, some emergency or some happy thing happened, like your sister gets married, you'd be like, yeah, I can't make it because I can't swim there fast enough.
Yeah.
So you can argue that like that type of transportation has actually made human. Can you swim that fast? Maybe you can, and I just don't know it. But like it has made humanity better, but it hasn't. Okay.
Yes.
So I think that's an important thing to note here as well.
So for sure, like AI outside of the tech bubble, outside of the people who use it every day for their job and stuff like that, didn't change much anything outside of that, right? Like if you close your computer and you just look at cars, you look at billboards, and you look at shopping, and you look at planes and travel and all of that, AI is not involved into any of that. Like zero. There has been like almost zero impact of AI into the real world, almost none. It has just made us much more productive, especially the developers. But outside of the developer community, it didn't really help a lot of people in significant ways. Maybe the
Yeah.
the students got some help because like they can like do their exercise and do their homework in a much faster way than before. But outside the students and the developers, there haven't been a lot of impact for AI yet, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest, I know what you're saying, but I would suggest that it's made students' lives worse, right? Because now everyone thinks they're cheating on everything. It's unlawful, right?
Yeah, for sure. And also like for them, like, I mean, I always like this metaphor of like, I mean, like with big quotes, but like if you think AI, I mean, if you use AI to pass your degree and you're happy about it, then it means that it's AI who actually can have your job after that.
Exactly.
It's
Right. So
him
then you
who
have
passed.
no way to complain. Hey, AI
then you
took
have
my
no way
job.
to
You're like, no, you gave your job to
No,
AI.
exactly, because you passed your degree, you passed your test with AI, and you were happy about it, but you didn't realize what that actually meant, right? And yes, and so that's why I hope not too many students are into this trap of thinking this way. But yeah, I mean, for sure, I mean, I think that is why I think right now we have so much problem with data centers. That's why it's so hard, for people to accept all of these things, because people, I mean, in their mind, like, they're like, if you build data centers means more AI means less work. It's very simple. That's what you've been saying for 6 years, right? Like, I mean, at some point, I just believe the news, right? And so that's why I think like the recent things also that Dario said about that he said something also really interesting where. Wait, I need to find it. We put it on on AGTP, and we have covered a lot of news recently. So let me just scroll through that. But he says basically something along the line of AI will find a solution to every disease within 5 years. So something like that. And this is positive. This is good. This is something that people can be like, oh, okay, I like that. Like maybe you can cure something. Maybe I can avoid being sick about this thing or that thing. And that's positive. And there is so little communication like this. So little. It is
Can I just
almost
say this
never.
though? The thing that really impacts people's everyday lives and their perception of any, I don't even want to say technology, but we're talking about tech, so let's just put it in the context of technology, is what is its impact going to be on my economic life? Don't you think that that's true? In other words, like when computers came along, people didn't think like, oh, I'm going to lose my job. They're like, I can get way more done and I can look better at work.
Yeah.
But that's what I did when I was at Morgan Stanley. I was like, hey, if you put a computer on my desk, I can be way more productive. It made me a superstar at work. And I was super happy to have it. But now people, and I think these are people that are low information, or let's just say less information than you and I have.
I mean, yeah.
Which is most of the population, because we talk about it, we think about it, we look at it, we research it, we do all this stuff every single day, we use it every single day.
Every day.
and it makes our economic position actually better. But we don't cede control. We don't give control to the AI. We use it for our benefit.
But wait. We don't get control of AI because we know AI can't get control. That's why. I mean, I would love AI to tomorrow do all of my marketing, and I don't need to think about it. I would love to give him all the control in the world, but he's unable to do that. He's just like
But that's the point.
just
You
not
know
possible.
that. We both know that,
Exactly.
right? So like we
Exactly.
use it to the extent that we can use it, but we're
Yes,
not
yes,
afraid
yes.
of it because we see its limitations because we try to do as much as we can
Yeah.
with it. But most people don't even see the limitations because all they hear, and
Yeah.
they're not using it on a day-to-day basis. So all they hear is it's going to take your job. And then they
Exactly.
see some guy get laid off and they're like, see,
Exactly.
it took that
Exactly.
guy's job. And
Exactly.
and whether it did or didn't, it doesn't even matter. It's just perception is 9/10 of reality. And that's why people are afraid. And Dario Amodei is contributing to that. And his complaining about it, I think, is hypocritical at some level. No?
Super hypocritical. Exactly. I think this is like one of the most hypocrite things that he can do, because exactly like he's been the one. By the way, when we showed this article about GPT 5.2 being too dangerous to be released, it is when Dario was at OpenAI as the CMO. So we can say probably that he's been
Not
the one.
5.2, 2.0.
Sorry. Yes. Yeah. You're
Just
right.
to be clear, sorry.
GPT 2.0, that's why it's so far away. I even made the mistake. Like, it's so far away. And that's when Dario was at OpenAI as the CMO. So he probably has been the one pushing for this type of messaging, creating this type of messaging since his time as OpenAI, now at Anthropic, and now he's the one who complain about it. I think it is, what did you say? Like,
Hypocritical.
what's the word?
Intensely hypocritical.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Intensely hypocritical.
So, but yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that that this big tech CEO just say crazy things, right? But I think right now it's really time for them to move on. I think this because like also matter that we can add like all the craziness that they have done with Fable and Mythos recently, right? Like all of these things, like, and it didn't led them anywhere at the end of the day. At the end of the day,
No.
they tried to do this big thing of like our models are too dangerous to be released, to try to get this marketing stunt, and all of a sudden, DeepSeek, Kimi, ZAI, Quen, everybody released an amazing model better than them OpenRouter, like all of them, basically. And so it's not that just it didn't work, it's like the timing was so wrong that it didn't work, and it completely backfired to them. Today, the sentiment against Anthropic is so bad amongst the developer community. We see way more people saying, hey, I'm canceling my cloud subscription to OpenAI or to somebody else, rather than the opposite. So now, I think this is not only a backlash, it's like backfiring to them like 10 times. It's getting so bad. And so that's why I think let's quickly do like a very good transition to the next story, because they say that they have like what they have a record second quarter. Actually, Matthias, do the intro, do the
Let me run
explanation,
through this a little bit because
and then I'll do my
it's a
segue.
little bit of an intro here.
Yes.
So, and I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to answer this question and let me go forward. Yeah.
Okay.
What has been their commentary on their revenue up until today, between the last time they talked about it and today? What has it been? Exactly. Crickets, silence, dead silence. You're very good at that, by the way.
I like you, George.
You're very good at that. I'm not so good at that, actually, as you know. But now they're saying that their financial trajectory has moved into a different category.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the company told prospective investors that preliminary Q2 revenue exceeded $11.5 billion.
Okay.
So compared with $787 million a year earlier. But again, I don't think like last year's revenue has anything to do with today.
No.
Can I say that?
No, yeah, first of all, yes.
I just don't think so.
Yeah.
And the previous and a year earlier, and $4.73 billion in Q1. Okay, fair enough. So it's doubled. 2 point something.
Yeah, 2 point something.
2 point something. Okay. And they also reported positive adjusted operating income for the quarter. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And That number is consistent with their previously disclosed revenue run rate, but it's higher, right? So now they're saying they're annualizing what, 11.5 times 4, 44, $46 billion. It's above their $30 billion number that they said before. You're smiling. You clearly want to say something about this. And not surprisingly, all of this revenue is driven by enterprise usage. But here's my feeling on this. I'm curious what you think, right? Because it's coming. Remember, we heard rumors yesterday, the day before, I can't remember, that they want to have an IPO now in October, and they're thinking about a $2 trillion valuation. So it doesn't shock me that they're actually coming out and going, hey, we're making a ton of money, blah, blah, blah. Right? What do you think?
So, first of all, I think we were right, Michael. Like, for a month, we've been saying that because Anthropic is saying crickets about their revenue, it must be bad. And when I see that, it's not good at all. It's actually terrible. Because we said it's really bad. What does it mean? Either it's stable, it doesn't increase, or it's actually going down, right? If my math is correct, 11.5 times 4. So if you make 11.5 billion in one quarter, in a year you make 46 billion. So which means if in May you were planning to make 47, that's a slight decrease, which means we were completely right. They didn't grow at all since May. So they may be slightly decreased.
Or they're a little bit lower.
Or they are a little bit lower, right? Which means the growth since May have been 0. So after saying to everybody, we grew so much December, February, May, it has been insane for us. And then crickets, we said it's been bad, and it is actually really, really bad. They didn't grow at all for 3 months. And so, which means like, it's not doing well. So that's why like I really wanted to put that into the same context as the story before. Like they have been scaring everybody for years about AI is too dangerous to be released. They did this crazy thing about Mythos and Fable. Then everybody released all of their competitors' models that works really well, and from companies that we like more than them. So now it's not a backlash, it's actually a backfire, and now the numbers actually bear this out. Like the numbers that when we were explaining all of these things up until today we didn't have, but we had the feeling that something like this was happening, and now the numbers are actually bearing this out. Now we know that they hadn't have any growth since May, and so now that's actually the proof to me that it's actually doing really bad. The momentum's gone. They also don't know how to grow. Like basically they were lucky, probably, at the end of 2025. Like they had massive breakthrough in terms of how good the model were. Then they were OpenClaw, that gave them like a lot of growth. A lot of people wanted to use OpenClaw with Claude. That was working really well. So the growth was coming from third party. Okay, the model was great. Like the model was really, really good. But then besides of that, they didn't know how to get clients, how to convince clients. They didn't know like how to generate leads, like all of these things that a business have to do. They didn't know how to properly do marketing. And so then once the growth stale, because then they said themselves, by the way, that Claude shouldn't be able to be used in OpenClaw, so they shoot their own foot basically. And then once
we would say they shot themselves in the foot, but yeah.
Okay.
Not they shot their own
You
foot,
get
but
the
yeah.
idea.
I get the idea.
You get the idea. So they shot their own foot. They shot themselves in the foot, sorry. And then, and then they say now we got to change their communication. I mean, this is absolutely obvious that they got to change everything if they want to continue, like if they want to stop the bleeding, first of all. And so then regarding the IPO, I mean, everything changed so fast in AI right now. Like 3 months ago, we would have never had this conversation about Anthropic.
No.
So they target an IPO in October, which is 3 months from now. Things goes really, really fast, but it's gonna be really hard for them to climb back up, just in terms of momentum. Just in terms of like, okay, we go from a company that a lot of people don't like at the moment to we are actually liked again. Like first of all, let's start there, right? That's going to be really, really, really hard. And it doesn't look like they are doing anything to get back in the art of their client, first of all. So, yeah.
But Martin, these companies, let's just back up a little bit, right? Because both of these companies, OpenAI and Anthropic, have done a lot of work in the last few months building the FTE business, right? It's
Yeah.
committing billions of dollars to either work with the consultants, I forget who's who, it doesn't really matter, right? Or work with the financial services companies that support some start, like all these kinds of things that they've done. But at the end of the day, months later, it doesn't seem to have really impacted at least Anthropic's revenue in a way that's positive. And
Zero.
as we like to say, it's not just due to one thing. There are multifaceted reactions to this, right? And one of the things, obviously, is I think the release of these open weight models now making people think, and also the end of, as you like to say, the token maxing era is over, if it
It's
would
finished.
even ever started, to be fair.
Yeah.
Right. But this idea now that they're going to be able to IPO at a $2 trillion valuation, I'm going to keep going back to this, right? Because we were right initially with what we said about SpaceX. Now the stock is actually performing relatively well. So fair enough. But again,
For
it's
now,
not at its
for now.
highs. Yeah, for now,
Yeah.
not at its highs, right?
Yes.
For sure.
Mhm.
And there is still going to be some selling pressure out there. But again, just because we can talk about short selling and all sorts of stuff, but it's not worth going into. That's not today's topic. But the point here is that what's going to happen to these? Because we're already in the middle of August, right? And September's just around the corner. If September's around the corner, you're talking about road shows and preparation and all the stuff that has to get done for an IPO to take place in October.
But Michael, way more important than all of that, the market has moved on. Like the way we are buying AI in May is completely different today.
But the way we were what in May?
The way we are buying AI, we are buying our tokens, we are talking about implementing AI into our company in May is completely different today in August. It has completely changed. And I think this is actually like the acquisition of OpenRouter is the new AI. Like this is the new way that people are doing AI in August 2026. We go to OpenRouter, we take a subscription there, or the API, and we use DeepSeek, and we use more models. We use models that are good enough for our workflows. We decrease our bills. That's what people are doing in August 2026. People are fine-tuning models. People are talking about local AI as well. Like this is what we do right now. This is what people are focused on, and Anthropic is involved into none of this behavior. None of them. They don't have an open weight. They are the most expensive. They are not involved into anything at all.
So the one last thing I'll ask you before potentially we start welcoming guests is this. Because you brought up you brought up this stuff about OpenRouter again.
Yeah.
What does it mean for these model companies? Right? Because their leverage is completely disappearing. And you're right. The way we pay for it and the way we think about paying for it has changed dramatically.
Since May,
and the idea for me has always been, again, getting back to this, like you build this horizontal business above all these vertical businesses. Now you take away all the leverage because if everybody goes to OpenRouter, like what kind of marketing can Anthropic do? Unless they're paying OpenRouter. This is what I talked about before in the ad business, right? They can get listed at the top if OpenRouter goes into the ad business, which would not shock me, the same way that Amazon did, that Shopee does, and that Lazada via Alibaba does as well on their e-commerce businesses. Is they make a ton of money on ads because that's the way sellers differentiate themselves. And to be fair, at some level, what's the difference between Anthropic and a seller of commoditized goods on Amazon?
Yep. So our guest just arrived, so I need to go. But also like OpenRouter has a ton of risk. Right? It's not sure. I think the Stripe business was pretty straightforward when it comes on. People are going to pay. I mean, the risk was e-commerce is not going to happen for Stripe, because if e-commerce happened, then Stripe happens. So I think that was like a okay risk. But for OpenRouter, I think we are super early. I think we are really
No,
early.
super. It's only a 3-year-old company. I think go get the guest. I think you're 100% right.
Yeah,
but I do think OpenRouter has a lot of risk going forward, for sure.
Yes, it has a lot of risk. It's not sure that they are going to be a for sure big player in 10 years. You know, like, no. There's like a lot of things that can happen. But once again, they are the way we use AI right now. We want to buy our AI, we want to use our AI, and Anthropic doesn't really participate into this type of stuff, right? And so that's what really scares me. So that's why. Thank you very much.
Because I know you're leaving, I can say this, but
yes,
you're gonna leave, right?
Yes, yes, it is. See you, everyone. See you on Thursday, 10 a.m.
This is going to
Eastern
be the
time.
way that agentic payments actually get done. And you're going to see,
Okay, see you.
you're going to go get the guest, right? So this is the way that agentic payments are going to get done. And Martin and I can argue about this later, both online and offline. I know he's still listening. He's going to pipe in a second. But that's the bet. I think that's part of the bet that that Stripe is. You're still there. I can hear you, man. Martin, I can hear you. Better. But that's the bet I think that that Stripe is making, is that they believe maybe more strongly than anybody else that agentic payments are actually going to be, and agentic micropayments are going to be something that actually matters. That's why they built this MPP, the machine payment protocol, and that's why they made this bet to buy OpenRouter, because to them that's the most important part of this business, is saying how are we going to how are we going to allow people to make streaming payments, usage-based payments, continue to make subscription payments, continue to do their e-commerce payments. But they've made this decision the same way they made the decision to be the infrastructure for e-commerce, to the extent that it was growing when they first built Stripe, but also as Stripe itself continued to grow, they want to do the same thing in artificial intelligence. And you have to ask yourself a question: what's going to be bigger as a platform? Is it going to be, is e-commerce going to grow, continually grow as fast as the AI infrastructure and the AI businesses are going to grow, whether whether you believe in agentic payments or not? If Stripe can make OpenRouter the place that people go to continue to pay for their artificial intelligence infrastructure and their inference, and if that continues to grow at the pace that it has been growing up until now, then they actually engender themselves into a place where they can actually be the gateway for payments for everything that matters, at least initially, for artificial intelligence and the inference that is becoming the most important part of what people are paying for, right? And that, I think, is going to be really, really important. Okay, Martin, let's bring Jim, the founder and CEO at Jim Tousignant, the founder and CEO at FinTech Studios, into the show. Jim, how are you? It's nice to meet you. Look at you all set up with your microphone. I like it. I'm impressed. What kind of mic is that? Is that that's a Shure SM7B, or is it an MV7? You don't know, do you?
It's the first one you just mentioned.
SM7B. Nice.
Yeah.
I have one over there. I have
Very
one
nice.
too. Yeah, but I like
Very
that.
nice.
I don't know. Somehow I like the way this looks, but I love the way the SM7B sounds. Okay, look, thank you so much for joining the show. We really appreciate it. We wanted to talk to you about how AI-powered intelligence is changing decision-making in financial institutions. Before we get into that into detail, tell us a little bit about the important work that FinTech Studios does.
Be happy to do that. So thank you, first of all, for having me. So the important work we do really is a continuation of my whole career, which is to how to help people find, ingest, and analyze massive amounts of data. And so FinTech Studios is a AI first market intelligence and regulatory intelligence platform. We started the business around 10 years ago. We're venture backed. We have clients like JP Morgan and Citibank and S&P Global and Accenture and others. And what we do is we use our technology, which is all sort of bleeding edge AI based, to ingest millions of global sources of content, mostly publicly available content, but also private content or client content, and turn that across multiple languages. We ingest across over 100 languages globally. We effectively turn all of that unstructured data into structured data. And so to think of it as like Google on steroids for capital markets. So we ingest it, we tag it, we analyze it, and we have a very scalable platform that has today over 600 large language models to apply against all of that data to generate insights. So that translates into applications, dashboards, newsletters, API access. And these days, the most interesting thing is video, AI-powered video and interactive video avatars.
So why does so can I ask you this? Let's back up a little bit, but how do your biggest clients actually use the platform today? And how is that different than they were using it when you first conceptualized this 10 years ago? Because the AI that exists today bears no resemblance to what existed 10 years ago. Is that fair?
Totally fair.
So go ahead. So tell me how it's changed. And then I really want to dig a little bit deeper into the largest use case you said, which is video. How is that being used? Why is it being used in this way?
Sure. 10, 11 years ago, we were also leading edge, but you didn't have the generative models you had today. You had machine learning, you had natural language processing, and you had other techniques to sort of turn that data into something usable. So how it's transformed is when OpenAI first introduced ChatGPT, I could see it was going to revolutionize the way people consumed information and interacted with computers.
Yep.
And we started jumping on that because up until that point, users of our product would typically search for news or market intelligence or regulatory intelligence in sort of a workstation-like interface where you would search for Apple, you'd search for things about a certain region or section, and it would pull from our data sets lots of articles and stories that, like Google, you would have to click on and read and filter through and so forth. Very useful, but not ideal.
And way more time consuming than it might be today, but please go ahead.
But today it's totally different. Now nobody wants to look at the articles. They want to read the generative summaries, which is really the shift from SEO to AEO, right? People are not using search engines, they're using answer engines. And so you can sort of think what we do is a vertical answer engine focused on capital markets so that a customer can type in, show me the latest information on my portfolio, or could talk to the mic, or now with our new interactive avatars could talk to the talking head, and it'll give you the answer. And the way that happens is we still use our data. The data is the gold, right? It's hard to replicate billions of structured documents that we've generated.
Right.
But now we apply large language models, very sophisticated prompts to generate any output that you might want. And whether it's a summary in text or whether it's a digital newsletter or whether it's a video, all of that now can be done with the data combined with agentic workflows, combined with one of, for us, 600 different large language models, allows you to interact now in ways you could never do and in a speed that is just mind-blowing.
How fast were some of these larger institutions? We can use JP Morgan as a proxy for all of them, or you can pick any company you want. I think you and I both used to work at Morgan Stanley, so maybe we can use Morgan Stanley as a proxy for this as well. But like how quickly have these large financial institutions that are participating in the capital markets been able to sort of adapt to this idea that now we can actually use a video avatar to communicate with themselves internally, or is this something that they expose to their clients as well? Is it both?
It's both. So it's a great question. I would say, given you worked at Morgan Stanley, you understand, because I obviously enjoyed it there, but big organizations, generally fairly slow in adopting new technology, often highly regulated, have to be very careful how they adopt new technology. This is one example of it. So many larger firms, medium-sized firms are actively pursuing it, but I would honestly tell you, I feel like they're all moving too slow. They're all moving too slow because this revolution, my friend, is nothing like any other I've seen in 40 years. It's accelerating at a pace that you have to stay ahead of the game and be nimble and flexible, and things you would have done a year ago, you have to do differently now, not just in the tools you use, but the process you take and the organization that you create. So with video, it's even further out. They all want it. They all see the possibilities. And when we show them our interactive video avatars or other things, they're blown away. But what's exciting is I think they see it as a transformative way to get away from the user experience of the past, because
which is like, so what's the difference? Again, for the audience, not necessarily just for you and me, right? But what's the difference in the workflow where these video avatars come into play? Is it from and again, you said you have billions of generated documents as well. But I remember when like a client would call an analyst or a client would call somebody in the research department and say, walk me through like what's going on with SoftBank and why this matters. They're doing a share issuance, or they're doing a pipe, or they're doing something like this. How should I participate, and what's going to be the impact on my portfolio? Now, is that going to, or do you believe that it should go to a video generated avatar to be able to answer all those questions? And if that's the case, sorry, I have a follow-up already. What has to happen internally do you think, in your experience, to make that available? Because you're right, these companies move very, like I thought Morgan and Goldman, where I worked at both of them, they moved very quickly in comparison to some of the other companies that were out there, but still it was glacial in comparison to the speed that I wanted them to move, for sure. As much as I enjoyed working there, same as you.
No, look, the big firms, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Goldman, they're rocking it. They're putting a lot of time and money in it, but they still have all sorts of other things to deal with. One is the regulatory issues.
Yep.
So, for example, just being a vendor now these days is very difficult if you're using AI, because all of these firms have very detailed processes now to deal with anything that involves AI and large language models. So think of it this way. You described it earlier. Client calls the analyst or client calls the advisor, and they have a conversation, and the advisor's trying to be responsive, and usually I'll send you something, or let me get back to you on it. And it takes a lot of time, and it's not scalable. The advisor or the research analyst can't have 5,000 conversations at the same time.
No.
But what if I had the advisor or the analyst with tools where he could do things in seconds or minutes, what used to take hours or days? If the analyst could generate a video summarizing the market movement and publish it to all of his clients, the clients would love it. They wouldn't have to call you. They wouldn't have to wait. And they could get a 3-minute summary of what's relevant to them. But the interactive avatar is even more interesting. I can talk to the talking head, and it can be Bob, my analyst, or Susie, the research analyst. It can include full interaction, audio, video, and I can ask it anything. And these days we're building in tooling to do things. You can tell it, generate a newsletter, generate a video, track my portfolio, tell me what's happening. And the avatar will talk to you like I'm talking to you right now, but it's pulling data from a knowledge base that is citable. So I know where that information is coming from to make it very relevant and timely.
So I want to get to the interactive point in a second, but like one of the things that we both know about, particularly from a research analyst standpoint, is that that information has to be available to all. This is why they have, sorry, like calls, research calls like this, because that information has to be available to all the interested people at the exact same time.
Sure.
What types of regulations are being built around this access for, like, if an analyst has, like you said, like 400 clients, let's say, there's no way that analyst can make phone calls to 400 people at the same time. I mean, they could do an analyst call and do that, or do a meeting. But if they publish it, what sort of regulations around there about when they can publish it, how they can publish it? And has this been fully fleshed out? Because the avatar thing is, as you said, it's new, it's bleeding edge, right? What are the regulatory sort of requirements around that, and have they even been fleshed out yet?
They haven't been fleshed out yet. I think people are actively looking at it. They're actively pursuing it. The way to think about it is a few things. Some firms are very focused on wanting to basically have an approval process to review any videos before it goes out, which makes sense from a compliance point of view. So you have to build into your products the abilities to create them, but then to have them approved or not approved or modify them. And we've built that into our products because, frankly, people want control over the avatar used, the voice used, the tone, the messaging, and so forth.
Right.
So there's some of that, but to your analyst point of view, I started Multex years ago as an online brokerage research play. So I was very familiar with what the street had to worry about with research and filings and so forth. This is the cool part. They can communicate to everybody all at once. They can do a video that's timely and relevant, doesn't involve studio time, doesn't involve human interaction, and it can update every day. And I could publish it to the whole world. I could put it on Morgan Stanley's website. Today's report on AI, today's report on ESG, today's report on emerging growth, whatever it is, any asset class. So it actually turns the analyst into a super analyst, highly productive, where he can communicate. Now, when you're talking about to what audience, institutional clients are one thing, but when you start communicating to retail investors, there's another level. So the financial analyst who wants to communicate with his retail investor has another level of compliance, typically unrelated to what I'm producing, but they still want to make sure it's factually correct.
Right.
It doesn't say buy or sell. It doesn't spin the wheel and make you sound like you're going to make 100% return, because with Gen AI, you can sort of have it communicate any way you want. So I think it's like any form of communication, I would say. Just like in the old days, they would want to check the facts that went out. They would want to check the email that would go out. They would want to check the written report that went out. Now they want to check the video before it goes out. And also it depends on the audience. Certain audiences are much more carefully monitored than others in terms of communication.
So as this sort of ability to give sophisticated sort of market analysis in real time is now becoming possible, how do you handle all the technology and the regulatory stuff around the interactive part of it? Like, I get the fact that the avatar that can look like Michael sound, that can look like me, that look like I do, that sounds like I do, but if somebody asks me a question, it goes to then, like you said, these 600 sources of information. How do we confirm in real time when there is this sort of interactive association between a potential client, whether it's retail or institutional, that the answer that I'm giving has also been approved? Do you know what I mean? Because this is really, the risk that's there is actually really high. Yeah.
I would say for most of our users, they don't get into any of this. Most of our users
Okay.
are end consumers, and they consume it for their own benefit. As an
Got it.
investor, a trader, a banker, a research analyst, a portfolio manager, a risk and compliance officer, because they're all searching for stuff. You and I both know they're still using Google and other things because they want answers to questions they don't know what the answers are.
Yeah.
So most of our users don't have all of this regulatory compliance issue, but when you are publishing things, depending on what your role is, if you're publishing it to your internal employees, that's a whole different level of issue. There's really no issue if you're
No.
communicating with your own team, your own
Yep.
staff. It's really when you're communicating with third-party markets, and only in certain cases, right? If I'm a hedge fund and I'm, sending out something that is to a set of institutional clients based on a video I produced, and only certain clients get it, I don't have a requirement to disclose that. That's private communication. I've just taken, instead of a text message or an email, I've taken a different way to communicate.
So consistency and branding are something else that are actually really important. I hadn't considered this before you and I started talking, but like, we were joking, at least initially, like, you've got a really nice microphone. You probably have a really great camera, right? Because you understand that the way you sound, like, this sound is way better than this sound for sure, right?
Totally.
Yeah, and you know that. That's why you have an SM7B, because it makes your voice sound as good as it can possibly sound. That's why you have that microphone. Otherwise, you'd have a Blue Yeti. No insult to Blue Yeti. But the point is that, like, when, again, let's use Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs, when they put out a research report, the analyst itself doesn't, they may do all the research work and they may do all the typing and stuff like that, but they give it to a production department that then makes sure that it looks exactly the way they want it to look and exactly the way every other report looks, in the same exact order. How
Yep.
do you handle that consistency and branding part of it? Like, does everybody get a microphone and a camera that's consistent? And does the video look the same for everybody else? The avatar sort of experience look the same? Or is that now becoming fragmented as well? And what does that mean from a branding and a trust standpoint?
Branding is very important. Part of what we do with all of our products, whether it's web-based or video-based, is we do a lot of branding of our products that are branded for clients so they can integrate what we do into their apps and their workflow, and it looks and feels the same.
Right.
Same with video. You want the logo to look good. You want the colors to be proper. There's two ways to think about it. When you do video, you can do it with what's called deterministic, which means I basically have a template of scenes and a format for those scenes, and I never deviate from those. I always have Bob on the left and facts on the right. I always have 14 slides in the thing. It's something that's been approved by compliance for certain use cases. For other use cases, you have a generative interaction where you give it facts, you give it a prompt, and it will generate the video, the audio, everything in a more generative fashion. And what we found with today's models, it is amazing. First of all, it doesn't have to be Bob, the analyst's face. Often people don't want their face, because I wouldn't want to use my face. I'd rather use a better looking person than me.
Nobody wants to look at this, for sure. Go ahead.
Also, you can do these in any language. So even though I speak English, I could generate a French, German, and Italian version of that same thing with the avatar. So I can do any look I want. If you're doing internal people, generally what will happen is they'll record themselves as a firm the video in order to generate the avatar. There are tools to let them do that in our platform. So in essence, I'm not going to try to render Bob the analyst. They're going to render it and approve the final avatar that they want to use for Bob the analyst. Same with voice. They may do 3 takes on getting the voice right, but once they've captured the voice, now we can do all of these programmatically, but that's one level of approval, because that way they know that Bob's voice and Bob's imagery is perfect. So you can control the branding, you can control the experience. And in terms of the content, you can control what it is the avatar can respond to. You can limit it to that analyst's knowledge base or to a certain domain so that he stays on track. And whatever that avatar might say is all cited. There's actually a link to the article, to the report, to the research. What better proof that he's talking about something that's correct when I can pull up the article and read it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're using if the research report is the source of the answers that the avatar is going to give, almost by definition, it's already been approved by compliance or whomever else has to approve it, right? And as long as that fits into the way the model and the template that they're using, if that's already been approved as well, then by definition, it has to be okay. Can I ask you this? Because one of the things that I think about with either generative AI or agentic AI is it changes the workflow as well. In other words, if you want to become really more efficient and more effective, you can't just apply the technology to today's workflow because that was built for other tooling and other experiences. How has the workflow stuff changed? And sorry to keep you for longer than expected, but I'm just really curious about how this has changed it.
Not a problem. I'm happy to stay on.
Thank you.
It's definitely changed the workflow. It's changed it in everything from how content and information is produced to how it's consumed. So another thing is often now these workflows are becoming more automated, but still with human interaction. So a lot of the things we do have multi-stage workflows that do this and then do this and then do this and then generate this and then use that to generate this.
Right.
That would have been done by people if you could have done it at all in the past. Now, a single human can spawn this as a one-time activity or as an ongoing task. So the workflows can be fully automated. They can be interacted with other workflows, but it changes the steps in the workflow and who does them, which also leads to the thing I think I'm seeing a lot more of interest in, which is some people would call it bot to bot or agent to agent commerce.
Right.
I won't be interacting in all cases with another human. I'll be interacting my bot with your bot to pull data, to run an analysis, to run those steps during the day that you want to run as your job unfolds, to take in your email, to process all of your requests, to generate your outbound, and it will do it fully automatically, and it'll interface to other APIs, other data sets to do that.
So are you suggesting that, and again, let's just use Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs as a proxy for every other financial services company, that if they use an avatar, that's their machine, right? That's then speaking to potentially somebody on the buy side. Yeah. Again, just to use the lingo that you and I are familiar with. But are we also suggesting then that somebody on the buy side who has to attend 4 meetings at the same time, cannot attend all of them, but just wants the summary of those meetings, is then going to send his own avatar, her own avatar to these meetings to listen, summarize, and then get back to him or her about like what the salient points were, so that then they can make some sort of investment decision or some portfolio decision as well. That machine to machine thing is going to become more common.
Absolutely. And again, why would I want to attend a lot of quarterly conference calls when I can have my bot listen, I can interact with the other bots that are providing information, I can get the full transcript of it, and I could attend 50 of them at the same time and have my model summarize it for whatever purpose I want.
Yeah. And so are you seeing this already? Like, I'm curious what kind of, and I'll let you go after this, I promise, but like, what kind of feedback are you getting both from the internal users of it? So meaning like, let's say an analyst on the sell side, and then conversely, the people on the buy side who are saying, it's great that an avatar is actually speaking to me, but I'm not even in that meeting either. I'm on the buy side and I'm actually doing 50 meetings at one time too. I'm curious what kind of feedback you're getting from people that are actually using this.
Well, nobody's doing what we just talked about. That's really where this is headed.
Fair
what
enough.
People are doing now is buying our products and services that have these video components, starting to do POCs and tests to look at interactive avatar experiences, thinking about exactly the branding you just talked about. Who do I brand it to? What content do I pull from? Do I push it through a newsletter? Do I put it on my website? Is it something that has to meet a compliance requirement? So they're going through a lot of the understanding of what the technology allows you to do, looking at both the upside benefits of this, cost savings, time savings, productivity, better communication, but also the risks. And these are uncharted territory. And when you're dealing with large regulated big firms, they're going to go at a certain pace, but when I said earlier, this is accelerating so fast,
Yeah.
they all have no choice. They all have to accelerate greatly what they do and how they do it and embrace this because their competitors are all doing it.
Yeah, and I think this is going to even accelerate even faster, and I don't think you would disagree with me. Okay, Jim, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us. Fascinating stuff, and I really appreciate you being so generous with your time.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You too. Bye for now. Okay, Martin, let's bring Hardik in now. Hello, Hardik. How are you? You are muted. There you go. Good to meet you as well. Where are you based?
I'm usually based in Singapore, but at the moment I'm in Colorado.
You're just showing off the view. That's what you're doing. You're like,
Yeah,
I
I
got
had
trees
to.
behind me, man.
Yeah, there's also a lake on which and then the sun rises directly from there, so it's always a beautiful morning.
Now you're bumming me out. Okay, well, good for you. I'm glad you're in a great place in Colorado. Look, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. And thanks for your patience as well. We're starting a little bit later than we expected. We wanted to talk to you, and we're going to switch gears here because we were just talking about financial services, and now we want to talk a little bit about manufacturing and how AI native manufacturing infrastructure changes the way advanced hardware companies build and scale products. Maybe before we get into that into detail, you can tell us about the important work that Factorem does.
Sounds good. Factorum means maker in Latin, and our goal is to become the maker for all things physical in the future.
Yep.
But where we started off today is where the demand is the most, and this is to do with deep tech companies. So think of businesses in the robotics, photonics, quantum tech, space technology, and defense. These 5 verticals is where more than 80% of our business comes from. Each of these 5, the common denominator is these guys need custom parts. They run on custom parts, but they're today bottlenecked by them. They need these precision components made as quickly as yesterday, and they do so by emailing dozens of machine shops. Hopefully somebody picks it up and deliver it with quality on time. But if you have to repeat this process 200 times, which is the average number of products that go inside a big build, you're gonna have things going wrong. And you add things like diversifying from China into the mix, as well as just the whole physical AI wave, that becomes a big constraint to their supply chain. So that's where Factorem comes in. We make it such that our clients come in with CAD files, design files, and they end up with parts at their doorstep as quickly as yesterday.
So is Factorem a marketplace as well?
That's definitely one way to put it. But the way a traditional marketplace would be one where, suppose you have a design, you would come in, look for the right factories on our platform, and then transact with them. With us, it's not. With us, we are your manufacturing partner. At the back end, we work with 160 factories that we match in order to get your job done. But beyond that, we also work with logistics partners, warehousing, tariffs, end-to-end shipment.
So I was going to ask you about that. So what type of security sort of concerns do people have when they create these CAD files? They put them into sort of the Factorem system, right? And then it gets sort of sent out to, I guess, whoever the appropriate partners are that are going to manufacture these things for them. You said like they send stuff out, they have a CAD file or a CAD file out there, and then they get a part back. At some point, there has to be a decision-making process that gets made around, okay, we like the pricing, we like the approval, we like the amount of time it's going to take here. How does that part of the process work as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially with the industries we work with. R&D, they're doing a ton of R&D, new age tech. Sure. The last thing they want is somebody getting a hold of their designs and replicating it without like putting in the work.
Or defense related, yeah.
That's right. So fortunately for us, R&D was where we first started servicing in Singapore in 2021. And very soon, the defense industry in Singapore picked up using Factorem. In that process, we had to ensure that security is built in place. And we went through audits for this as well. So the way this works is traditionally when you're fanning out this designs to machine shops, that's risky because it's going out through emails and anybody can get a hang of it. With Factorem, every design that transacts is firstly white labeled. So nobody really knows who the end customer is or what the application of the part is going to be or how it fits together in the entire bill of material. Second, we watermark every design. So in case there is a leak, we're able to trace it back down to exactly where it leaked from. So these are just some examples of how we're able to manage it.
Go ahead. Do you, if you're the design partner, are there situations or are there cases where somebody sends a design to Factorem, or Factorem actually has a design team as well that says, the design that you've come up with is great, but actually could be better if you design it like this, and then we have a perfect manufacturing partner for that, or you don't get involved in the design process itself at all?
That's spot on. Usually there are three approaches. Approach one is we do exactly what you want, and it may come at a really great cost or lead time because some of the things that you want are really hard to do. Not that it's impossible. The second is your drawings off from standard requirements by a millimeter. And if you're okay with the hole being slightly smaller, you're going to save a ton of cost. And the third is overall, today we can do this for you at low volume, but when you want to scale it up, there are a few things that you want to account in now so that when we do it at volumes, it'll be affordable and still functional for you. So our clients decide which category they want to fit into. Today, most of our clients are in the first or second category. Either they want exactly what they have planned, or they're keen to hear recommendations from us. And that's where we use AI to analyze the designs and provide them instant feedback as well.
Okay, so when you're using AI to do this analysis, how do you choose? I presume you're using some of the large language models to do this, yeah?
In reality, no, because we started off before this LLMs were even accessible.
Yep.
So it's our own proprietary models that combine everything from regression to OCR to get the work done. Today, we use LLMs to package some of this in a more human friendly manner.
What does that
The
mean?
core technologies. So, for example, today our model will tell you that this hole is really deep and we can't manufacture it. But what do you do with the information? That's where we pull an LLM, and it will talk to you to help you decide how to design it better, rather than having our humans come in to do that for you.
So are there situations, again, where you actually work with the manufacturers to say, if your machine tools were redesigned, do you know what I mean, using our processes, then you could actually make this product that's new or innovative that one of our new clients has asked you to make, as opposed to saying, we don't have the machine tooling necessary to actually do this? Do you know what I mean? Because now you're really dealing with like both the person who wants to get the thing made and the factory that wants to make it but may not have the appropriate tooling for it. But if they had it, they could actually then service this client.
That's a really great question. You're catching on to this industry very quickly. You're absolutely
trying
right.
really hard, man.
I think that's something that's not intuitive to clients at the beginning. They think we only would ask them to change their design, but actually a lot of work goes with our manufacturing partners, where we tell them, look, we're working with these industries that are doing things nobody in the world has done before.
Yeah.
But if you believe space technology or robotics or photonics are industries of the future, then you have to innovate at your machine shop as well. This could mean learning how to work with materials that you've never worked with before, or create tooling that is not standard in the past. And I think once they realize that that's what they're doing it for new age industries, they're open to it. And then they work with our engineering team to see how they can improve. Sometimes we also connect different machine shops in our network so that they can learn from one another. And our goal is to help them upgrade themselves as we grow.
How are you seeing the impact, again, as these models change, and I presume your models are being updated constantly, your proprietary models are being updated as well. How does the AI impact the ability for both the factories themselves, the manufacturers themselves, but also the people that are designing these new parts to innovate in a way that wasn't possible before, to create new sort of more efficient, better designs, better materials, as you suggested a moment ago? How is that impacting the innovation in those spaces?
I think on the buyer side, we're seeing this technology come up organically. That's 3D printing, specifically metal printing, where we see designs that were formerly just not possible. There's certain designs which I can't show you, but looking at them, they look entirely alien because a human could not have designed them. And and even if you could design them, you could not manufacture them. And now they're using AI to simulate all of the different permutations that would be required to hit that functionality you need. For example, it's a heat sink, and then you put it into a metal printer, and you're able to achieve it. And suddenly you have this structure that looks completely from the future, but it does everything it's supposed to at such a lightweight and great cost. On the supplier side, they're using AI mainly for improving their own processes. I think a big bottleneck today for them is a lot of these machine shops, they have so much tribal knowledge that's in the heads of their leaders that's not being passed down. That prevents them from retiring or going on a holiday because the shop would just come to a pause. So now they're trying to figure out how to bring that into maybe a local model that their guys can go to. And there are a ton of startups that we're seeing come up looking to fix that problem as well. So we're excited to partner with those and see where that leads.
I'm led to believe that chip design and the fabs that produce them fall into this category. And I'm curious what you're seeing in the chip design space, but also in the fab space. So the manufacturing of those chips, are they using your technology or similar technology as well to accelerate the way chips get designed, whether it's GPUs or CPUs or even specific use chips too? And then again, the tooling that's necessary to build them, is that getting designed using this type of technology as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I spent a couple of years doing product design at Micron. So I was designing chips that were in the memory space.
Yep.
And yeah, as advanced as a company is and as advanced as these chips are, a lot of work being done in the design analysis and optimization was human, manual. It was just me looking at signals and optimize and seeing what we should do to optimize for them. I can imagine that being a lot faster now. There are great startups coming up in the space. Factorem today, it's not in the PCB or electronic space.
Fair
We're
enough.
completely mechanical, but I can see some transfer learnings there, although that's not a place that I know too much about to comment.
Got it. Can you generalize a little bit about the speed efficiency that is being built into this now that artificial intelligence is being applied both to the design process, but also to the sort of supply chain part of the process as well? In other words, what sort of time savings or time efficiencies are you seeing, if you can generalize about that? Like, I know some things are going to take 1 day faster, some things are going to be 10 days faster, but are you seeing like 40% better performance, 70% better performance? Like, how is that sort of fleshing itself out?
For Factorem's clients, they go from 4 to 6 months to get all of their mechanical components procured to less than a month. So if you put that into percentage, it's going to be
like 75% faster or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
because
how does
the biggest
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say
the biggest bottleneck is what?
Yeah, biggest bottlenecks are things like the RFQ process, identifying the right partner for the job, making sure the partner understands information, and when they gets delivered, the QC process. But if all of this is automated using objective, data-driven methods, then suddenly it just works like dominoes. If you need something, the next day it's in the fab, and it's in the right fab that has the capacity and capability. They're going to do it right the first time. Within 3 days, they're done. Push it out. Logistics is optimized, and you get it by next week.
So one of the things you said earlier, and I wanted to follow up on, was you sort of make it easier for humans to understand what's going on by using some of the large language models to sort of create that content that then you can deliver to either the manufacturer itself or back to the product designer. I'm curious how you decide, particularly with today's news, that Stripe was the purchaser of OpenRouter. You know what OpenRouter does, right? It's sort of an orchestration layer for for like 400 LLMs. I'm curious, like, how that comes into play, or how you decide which model to use, and if you participate using OpenRouter at all, or if you just have decided we're just going to use Anthropic, or we're just going to use DeepSeek or something like that, and you just make those decisions on your own.
Yeah, that's huge news. I just saw that. Factorem, I think one thing we've seen over the past couple of years since these LLMs have become prominent is the models change so quickly. It almost didn't make sense for us to just lock in on one and say this is the reason why we decided to lock in. Today we use whichever is the most affordable, and then we have an eval matrix. As long as it hits that threshold, it's good to go. We're aware that it's evolving so quickly. It does not make sense for us to always keep trying the latest model because the current ones are already doing what we need them to do. given that they're not our core, they're at the packaging or the periphery layer, so they don't have a lot of impact to our business. And eventually, when things stabilize, and this could be next year or 5 years from now, that's when we could pick one that we want for the long term. I suppose this will be different for a company for whom these LLMs are the core technology driving the business forward.
Yeah, I mean, I presume that some of your design partners, the people that are actually giving you the designs that have that want to make these parts, that then Factorem then sends out for an RFQ to these manufacturing partners that we discussed, that they're using some LLMs. I'd be curious to know like how they decide which ones to use. One of the things that we talked about earlier before we welcomed our guest to the show was like, OpenRouter has access to 400 models. I haven't heard of like 100 of, do you know what I mean? I haven't heard of 300 of them. And a lot of them actually ended up being some of the open weight models, not the open source, but open weight models that I hadn't even heard of. I'm curious if you've heard of like HY3 or Mimo from Xiaomi and from Tencent. Have you heard of these models or no?
Yeah, I've heard of some of them, mainly from my team when they're trying some really heavy projects, more experimental, and they just choose to go with something that is cheap, but just to see where it leads to as well, regardless of cost.
Got it. What are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing as Factorem itself continues to develop? What are some of the things that your clients are telling you, like, God, we wish we had the ability to do this on the platform, but that's not possible yet?
That's a great question. I think for us, over the 6 years we've existed, we've gone from an era where everybody in manufacturing does not want to talk about AI, nor have they heard about it, to over the past 2 years,
6 months or 2 years?
Parading us around saying that this guy's doing manufacturing and AI, and we want to know what we can do with it. But one thing we noticed is none of them are willing to place a huge bet, meaning a strong investment in making their processes AI native just yet. Think they're standing by the side to see how it runs, because currently everything still works for them. There are no hair on fire problems that they think AI could fix. Typically, there's usually two problems that machine shops face. Either they have too many jobs and not enough machines or people, or they don't have enough jobs and they just cycle between the two. And where Factorem comes in, it's very timely, because when they don't have enough jobs, we start to fill capacity, and so they then get that consistency and order volume, and then that's when they think about what's next. And what's next is they're starting to look into quoting. So one of the things Factorem does, and this is our core, is when you give us a design nobody in the world has seen before, we give you a price in seconds. And that's not something that's by fanning out RFQs to multiple vendors and getting a quote back. That's our model, that's locking in a price and saying, if you pay this now, we'll get it delivered to you by this date, and we'll figure out how it works at the back end.
But so that's my question is, how do you figure out on the back end? If you're not a manufacturer yourself, you give a price in moments, but it's not based on a quote that a factory itself has given you. How do you know that you can then, like, how much confidence do you have that then you can go to the factory and go, we quoted $1 for this thing, you'll do it for that? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you balance that out?
Yeah, that's the $1 billion question. And,
can you give me $1 billion and I'll give you an answer? I promise. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think so that's the core. So it's actually trained on proprietary data over the past 6 years. Factorem started as a way for you to get quotations within 24 hours, but what it did was, for customers, that was really good. You get 3 best quotes, but for factories, they didn't like it. It was a bidding system. Today, we're able to now take all of those quotes that we got in order to train our model to price. There are few insights that we also noticed in the process. When we asked the factory to price a part, we would get everything from $10 to $100 to $1,000, because pricing at this low volumes and precision is very experiential. And it's possible that a machine shop rightfully charges $10 while another one charges $1,000, because the $10 shop knows exactly how to get this done the first time. This is something that he's used to. Whereas for $1,000 one would have to invest in new tooling to create that for you. So when we realized that was the case, we realized there is no science to pricing. At the end of the day, it's willing buyer, willing seller. As long as we're able to transact both sides with confidence, we can't go wrong. So till date, we've done over 14,000 orders, less than 10 have we lost money on.
So
the rest are
14,000
always
different products, yeah, not 14,000 orders, yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, just to be clear. And is there a geographical concentration for where most of your factories are?
Yeah, so there's 160 of them. More than 140 of them come from outside China. They're all in Southeast Asia, and about 80 of them come from Singapore. So majority of our work.
80 manufacturers are in Singapore itself.
That's right.
Fascinating.
More than
Sorry,
80,
go ahead.
Yeah, more than 80% of the work that we do, the purchase orders we issue, they get issued to Singapore factories. So most of the work is being concentrated there. And the reason for that is there are 15,000 factories in Southeast Asia, and they exist despite being sandwiched between India and China. And the reason for that is these guys have always known to focus on a niche and get really good at it. They're masters of high mix, low volume. Imagine in Thailand, it's the automotive industry. In Singapore, it's semicon. In Indonesia, there is also oil and gas, Malaysia as well. So every factory is known to have a specific niche. If you go around and you talk to the factory and they will say, oh, I'm an oil and gas guy, or I'm a semicon guy. You don't get that in other parts of the world. You get a lot more generalists, and that's not what the industries we service need. So that made a ton of sense for us.
Are you seeing factory growth in these regions as well as the necessity to have these customized and new style of parts are getting developed, that a new factory actually needs to get built to actually service this stuff? Or does the existing factory infrastructure, is it sufficient to be able to handle all of this?
I think given these industries are still relatively new, so majority of what we see is the existing factories swapping out their existing customers for these new ones. But for larger factories, what we're seeing is there's a lot of European companies, European manufacturers moving base to Southeast Asia.
Oh, really?
And this could be because of the political situation in Europe, or just raising prices. They can't move to China either. So we're seeing shops in Malaysia or Indonesia get set up, and these are huge facilities. They're able to manufacture products like this.
And do you see countries in the region competing for and building incentives for factory construction, right? In the sense of like Thailand really wants this stuff. I know that, look, I did a lot of work with the Thai government on the Eastern Economic Corridor. I drive through there all the time. I know that like car manufacturing is something that Thailand does really well, but they're very interested in like any kind of sort of S-curve industry. Are you seeing competition between countries to say like, we want to do this and we do sophisticated manufacturing here, maybe not in that sector, but we know how to do it, and we'll compete with any other country to be able to build that factory in our country as well?
I can speak from Factorem's experience, because I wouldn't know what it is at a macro level, because my job scope doesn't allow me that time. What we see when working with governments ourselves is there is a pull to having players like Factorem that are able to bring in this demand from these new age industries. So we've spoken to the Vietnamese government as well as the Malaysian government, and they're open to getting us in whichever capacity, just so that they make sure they don't miss out on this access. And I think one of the things that Factorem gets is these designs or versions of parts that you will not see elsewhere, and making sure that your machine shops or your local manufacturing base is able to support these industries is making sure it's a way to future-proof your country's positioning in manufacturing.
Got it. And
so I presume, see that.
Sorry, they must see it, right? I presume a lot of your customer growth is in the United States, where, do you know what I mean? Where where the innovative designs are coming up, and then they send those designs via Factorem into the factories in Southeast Asia and maybe mostly into Singapore, yeah?
That's right. Yeah. So Colorado, it's where a lot of that comes from. There's a lot of intellectual people living up here in the mountains working on deep technologies.
Yep, I can imagine. So does that mean you're flying to Silicon Valley, you're flying to California and Texas as well, where there's probably a lot of that stuff happening too? I presume maybe Boston as well? I don't know.
Yeah. I think the two biggest hubs for us now is here in Colorado, then Silicon Valley and Boston. Boston's more of med tech. Texas, not too much just yet. There is a lot of manufacturing there, but it's not for the industries that we're focusing on.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, there may be a lot of space stuff and not a lot of photonics, robotics, and although there may be some defense stuff there. Okay.
Quantum.
Yeah, quantum and stuff. Okay, fair enough. It sounds like you're in a really interesting spot. I feel like I could keep you forever. Thank you so much for your patience at the beginning, and thank you for spending extra time with us afterwards. I just find this space fascinating, Hardik, and thank you again for being flexible, and thank you as well for switching to AGTP based on time as opposed to waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and being on our Asian show. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you accommodating that as well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It was a complete pleasure meeting you.
You as well.
Okay, bye for now. Okay, everybody, that is it for AGTP Insights. Thank you again for joining us. Give us a thumbs up on today's video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on all of our socials, on X, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. As always, we love to be as interactive as possible. If you're watching the show, feel free to ask us questions. If you're watching the show live, if you're watching the show later on YouTube or on X, again, feel free to leave questions there. We love interacting with our viewers. We will be back again Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Thank you again to Martin Runford. My name is Michael Waits. I'm going to say goodbye for now.